Hey guys. This is part 6 of What If Naruto Was Raised by the Third Raikage. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 20. Finals, Yatsuki vs Uchiha. The villagers and shinobi woke up. Excitement was visible in the air as everyone hurried to get ready and to head down to the arena. A month had passed and finally the final parts of the chunin exams were underway. The participants of said chunin exams woke up early and got all their gear ready, and shouldered on his sheaths, and he put most of the swords in their respective containers, and with the final sword that was upward he threw it into the air with obvious skill as it arced and fell into the sheath neatly. With his normal grin in place he headed towards the kitchen where everyone was waiting. When they saw and emerged from the doorway they headed towards the arena. Man, my nerves are tingling, and thought, any more of this waiting and my stomach will be wiggling. Shut up, Kyuubi moaned. Good luck. Remember, we have faith in you guys, the third Raikage said as they entered the arena. Raisin ruffled En's hair. Knock him dead, son. And gave his father a thumbs up. Ain't nobody gonna take me down. Those who try can only frown. Raisin chuckled while he rolled his eyes. We'll be up at the Kage box. C should be around here somewhere. And nodded, and the two elder shinobi left to meet up with the Kage. Their senseis stayed back for a moment. Good luck, I have faith you will pass. Just remember everything we've taught you, Darui said with a lazy smile before B shouldered him away, his carefree grin in place as always. Yo, you got this in the bag. Go at those pussy cats with everything you got, and we'll show them who's on top. Yeah! And yelled as he gave his brother a fist bump. Good luck, my baby pupils. When you get back I'll make sure your training gets increased by the quadruple. B said to his genin team. Is that supposed to encourage us? Omoy whispered to Carrie. If we did that we'd drop dead on our feet. A buzzer went off and the chunin hopefuls headed into the arena. It took them a moment as it was too bright, but when their sight returned they couldn't help but gasp slightly. The arena was huge, and surrounding them was thousands of cheering civilians, nobles, shinobi, and practically anyone who wanted to see a good fight. Damn, and said as he looked at the large crowd. He easily found the Kage box where his father and brother were. The rest of the other genin were in the middle of the field. They all stood together as the crowd cheered them on. Hey, where's that Dosa guy? And thought but couldn't find the Odo spy. He noticed the smirk on Gaara's face and his heart sank. Did he kill him? He then noticed that Sasuke wasn't there either. I swear if that pansy doesn't show, I'm going to kick his ass all the way back to Kumo. The final proctor of the exams walked up to them. As Hokage-sama told you, welcome to the final part of the chunin exam. My name is Ganma Shiranui, the proctor. My word is law, and when I call a match you are to stop fighting immediately. The chunin exam finals will be held in the same format as the preliminaries, with a one-on-one match. The winner of each match will progress to the next round while the loser will be eliminated. However, even if you are eliminated in the first round, you still have a chance at promotion, but of course even if you win you could still be left as a genin. But the more matches you fight and the more chances you will have to show off your abilities, Genma told the group of genin who nodded their heads at the rules. In the Kage box, 2 Kage were seated in chairs while 2 men were stationed behind them. One chair was empty while C stood behind it with a calm expression on his face. But if you knew him well enough you could tell he was on edge. Why? It was because he hated Konohagakure with an undying passion. He loathed the dogs that came from here. With the exception of Itachi, C had never been known to find a friend in anyone from this accursed village. The reason for such strong feelings was simple. Back during the last Shinobi War, when C was just a little boy barely the age of 5, his parents were part of a group to sneak into the Land of Fire to rendezvous with another squad for an invasion. But they had been discovered and killed. Kumo never got back their bodies, so there was no proper funeral, just empty caskets, with 2 boys in front of them crying their hearts out. With their parents dead, C turned to the only remaining family member left, his big brother L. He was the one who comforted him. He was his idol, his best friend and brother. When he learned of L's death he had fallen to the ground and sobbed. Despite almost being a grown man, he didn't believe it until he saw the body. C remembered it so well. He had taken one horrified glance at the remains of his brother before backing out of the room and collapsing onto the concrete floor. He wouldn't talk to anyone, not even his teammates Darui and A, not even Raisin Sensei. It was only when C remembered something that he emerged from his home. He didn't know who had killed his brother. It was bitter irony. The shinobi from the village that had taken his parents had taken his brother as well. Who knows, maybe when he had children Konoha would kill him, and it would just be a cycle. C sighed slightly in relief as his sensei and teammate appeared, dragging him out of the dark reminders of the past. Raikage Dano, Sarutobi said with a smile. I was wondering where you had gone. No doubt to wish your son good luck, eh? Raisin chuckled. My son doesn't need good luck when he has such skill. The Kage, or to be exactly Orochimaru in disguise, looked at the legend before in shock. What was he doing here? Orochimaru had assumed due to the past tensions of the two nations the Raikage would not appear to not cause any trouble. Obviously that thought was thrown out the window. Orochimaru felt uneasy. He knew he could beat his sensei, but him along with the Raikage and his son? Even he doubted his odds. Sarutobi sensei alone was a powerful opponent. He'd have to be careful and try and make sure they aren't in his way to kill his old sensei. And who knows, they are from a different nation, so why would they help an old enemy when they are being invaded? Raisin mentally narrowed his eyes as he looked at the Kage. Something felt off about the kid. He thought warily. The third Raikage sat down in his seat, while I stood behind him along with C. Back in the arena, the first rounds will be Sabuko no Temari of the Sand versus Abirame Shino of the Leaf. All the genin save those two headed up to the stands where they would wait until it was their turn to fight. Temari took out her massive fan while Shino waited calmly with his hands in his pockets. One of Temari's moons was shown, wind style, dust wind jutsu. She swung her fan and a large gale of wind erupted from it, covering the area the two were in. Shino's bugs covered the boy, using their bodies as a wall. When no attack came, Shino went on the offensive. Insect clone jutsu. Bugs began to close together until 3 clones of Shino appeared. The trio rushed at Temari. Despite Temari being more of a long-range type of kunoichi, that didn't mean she wasn't good at close range. She folded her fan with a single movement before dodging one of the clone's punches. She jabbed the butt of the fan into the clone's exposed stomach, making the clone burst into a cloud of bugs. Temari quickly jumped out of the cloud and moved her fan in circular motions at the oncoming bugs with her closed fan. A small funnel of wind, like a sideways tornado, formed and the bugs were blown away, many on them dying from the pressure of the wind. The other 2 clones rushed at the Suna girl, who rushed at them as well. Rolling under a punch, Temari evaded the first clone before jumping into the air as the other clone appeared behind her. As she was in the air, Temari noticed many bugs surrounding her. Realizing it has been a trap, Temari reached into her bag before bringing out a couple of kunai with exploding tags. She threw them in multiple directions, creating explosions around her, but not harming her. The insects, however, were another cause. Most of the bugs were incinerated while the smarter and faster ones managed to flee and head back to Shino. As she fell, Temari saw one of the clones form hand seals, insect bullet. A large and painful-looking sphere of insects rushed at the falling Temari, who could do nothing but brace herself. The jutsu hit the girl in the chest, making her crash to the ground with a thud. Temari noticed a shadow above her, her eyes widening when she realized what it was along with the danger it brought. She quickly rolled to the side and got back to her feet as the large cloud of bugs began to descend. 2 moons were shown as she swung the large fan, wind style, Great Sickle Weasel Jutsu. A great torrent of twirling wind came from the overly large battle fan and went for the cloud of approaching bugs. Temari smirked as the jutsu hit the bugs dead on, instantly destroying them. Hey, it seems you're out of bugs. She raced towards the unmoving Shino, her fan held at the ready to hit him. Temari closed the distance and raised her fan above her before sending it crashing down towards Shino's head. An inch away from bashing Shino's head, Temari stopped. What? She stuttered as she tried to bring her fan down but found no strength. Her body began to tremble as her muscles lost the energy to move. Only because of her willpower Temari able to stand. Temari then noticed something crawling up her arm. It was a bug. She glanced down and saw with surprise and horror that her entire body was covered in bugs. How? She gasped in surprise. How? Shino questioned calmly. I created 3 clones and yet you merely defeated 2 before the other clone disappeared. The bug cloud. It was the clone. Temari realized. Correct, why? Because a simple henge in Kawarmi made it quite easy to make my clone look like a cloud of bugs. When you were busy getting rid of the clone, I managed to place bugs on you. With the other 2 clones there was a couple bugs on them. When you dispelled them they used the cover of the smoke to latch onto you, and you never noticed. Shino tilted his head slightly while Temari cursed herself for underestimating her opponent. I forfeit, she said. Her chakra was quickly being drained and she didn't care if she lost the exams. She just needed chakra for the invasion. The winner is Abirame Shino, Genma announced. The civilians cheered for a Konoha victory, though many were wanting to see the Hyuga and the Uchiha fight. The next match will now be Aobuyoki Ko of Kumogakure. All the Konoha civilians booed. Ko's sweat dropped. That's reassuring, he muttered. Versus Hyuga Neji of Konohagakure. The civilians cheered. Ko and Neji looked at each other before heading to the arena, each eyeing each other up, trying to find any weakness they could exploit. It seems we finally get to see your shinobi's worth, Raikage Dano, the Kazekage aka Orochimaru sneered. The Raikage's eyes narrowed as he clenched his fist on the pommel of the chair, making it shatter. Watch your tone, brat. He growled out. Now, Sarutobi said, seeing the Kazekage's guards tensing along with CNA. This is a peaceful event. We will not break our own rules. TCH. Raisin scowled but returned his attention back to the arena. Back in the arena, Hajime, Genma announced. Neji activated his Byakugan and got into a stance. Ko got into a defensive stance. Neji rushed forward and aimed a palm strike to KO's chest. Ko dodged it and threw a punch to Neji's face. Neji tilted his head to the side, KO's fist missing him by centimeters. Neji then did a fast barrage of attacks towards Ko. Ko swatted aside each blow, knowing full well that if he was hit even once in a certain area then it was game over. He jumped backwards as Neji's foot came crashing down to the ground. Ko formed several hand seals, Suiton, water bullet. He quickly shot off a couple rounds of the condensed water at Neji, who was rushing towards the chunin hopeful. Neji quickly dodged the first bullet and continued to speed towards Ko. He jumped over the second one but didn't notice until it was too late to see a water bullet speeding towards him. Neji braced himself, and when he was shot backwards he backflipped before landing on his feet, albeit skidding several feet backward. Ko rushed forward, his sword appearing in his hand as he neared the Hyuga. Neji's white eyes widened and he quickly pulled out a kunai and blocked a strike. KO's sword seemed to glow slightly before cleanly slicing through the kunai like butter. Neji grasped his shoulder, which was bleeding while he retreated. I thought this guy was a water user. How can he use lightning? Especially the ability to channel it? Only a skilled enough right-hand user can do such a thing, Neji wondered. In the stands, Yujito looked at her teammate fighting before looking at her other teammate. Ko isn't a lightning user, what did you do? She asked and smirked. What makes you think I had anything to do with it? He asked innocently. He withered under the look Yujito was giving him. Sheesh, can't a guy make a joke? He asked, whereas Yujito looked at him in disbelief. All you do is joke around. Yujito retorted at her fellow blonde and Jinchuuriki. When have you ever been serious? Just give me one example. Well, there was. And wandered off trying to remember when he had actually been responsible in his 12 near 13 years of life. Exactly, Yujito stated with a smile. Yeah, rub it in, won't ya? And grumbled, but he was smiling too. If you two are done flirting. Carrie grumbled, making her friends blush scarlet red. Will you please explain why the hell Ko can channel lighting chakra? I'd like to know that as well, Samui offered as she looked at the Nine-Tails Jinchuuriki with an inquiring look. Okay, fine, and muttered, I put a small seal on KO's sword. It's basically a storage seal, but instead of storing items it stores chakra. Naturally there can't be a huge amount of it, or there is the risk of it exploding, which is a big no-no. But I merely put in a small amount of chakra. He can only use it once, so he doesn't have any more of that. Back in the arena, Neji winced as his arm wound throbbed. He could still move it, but it was painful. He had to finish this quick, or he'd lose consciousness from blood loss. He glanced up for a split second to where he knew his father was watching him. He wanted to make his dad proud. Suiton, water whip lash. KO's arm was surrounded with water. When he struck his arm out, the water became a long whip. Neji quickly ducked the first slash, but he sensed with his Byakugan that the tip was coming back towards him. Rotation. He yelled in desperation as he spun like a top, the water splashing to the ground. A small crater was formed, but Neji was unhurt. Crap, Ko thought. He knows the rotation? Gotta think this through. When he used it, he spun to the left. But if something hit him spinning at the same or higher speed going right? Bingo. Suiton, giant water drill. A huge glob even bigger than the water bullets rushed at Neji. The water was turning towards the right. Rotation. The jutsu hit Neji just as he started to spin. Time seemed to slow down as Neji rotated one way and the jutsu the other. Then inside the rotation Neji stumbled as he felt the outside pressure continue to attack his defense. Neji then noticed he was slowly losing speed. He tried to add more chakra, but before he could do so the water drill speed up. Neji stopped spinning to the left, and as he stopped he was too surprised that the Hyuga's ultimate defense was broken. The water drill slammed into his chest. Ga! Neji coughed up some blood as the drill kept moving before it rammed Neji into the wall, the jutsu disappearing. The entire arena was silent, the spectators holding their breath as they waited for the dust to clear, to reveal the end of the battle. The dust cloud cleared and everyone saw the slumped posture of Neji in the crater created by the impact of KO's jutsu. Neji fell to the ground and barely managed to catch himself with his hands. Genma waited a few more moments to see if Neji would get back up. When Neji failed to do so, he raised his hand into the air, The winner of the second match is Jinchuuriki of Kumogakure. The Kumogakure genin cheered for their friend, as did their senseis. Even the lazy Darui cheered for his student. B was probably the loudest of them. Ah yes, show 'em how it's done, Ko! From the top brass to the average Joes. Bakuyaro Kanayaro! He yelled energetically. Ko's sweat dropped at the giant of a man as he came up to where the competitors had been in. Thanks B-senpai, he finally said. Ko glanced at En, who was trembling in excitement. Yash! He whispered so no one besides his comrades could hear him. I get to fight and beat the shit out of the emo prince. I get to complete the mission. Don't be so cocky, En, Darui warned. The kid has probably been trained non-stop to fight you. Who knows what tricks he has up his sleeve. I know that, En said as he jumped into the arena and stood by Genma as he waited for Sasuke to appear. In the Kage box, Raisin and his comrades smiled as they saw Ko defeat the Hyuga prodigy. He glanced at the Kazekage, who was looking at the arena with an unreadable face. Sarutobi politely clapped as Ko walked off. He smiled while Raisin, and C's sweat dropped as even despite the roar of the crowd they could still hear B rapping. Baka, a thought with a roll of his eyes. I must say, the Kazekage said, your genin seems to actually have a little backbone. Course when my son and daughter go you'll see pretty fast that they won't be beaten easily. Orochimaru was thinking about Ko's amazing water ability. He had of course heard of the Aobuyoki Suiton. While not as great the Naidame Hokage, they were still some of the best water users in elemental nations. He tilted his head slightly as he smirked at the third Raikage. And now it seems your son is to fight, he said as they watched En come into the middle of the field. Raisin looked at the arena before looking at the Hokage, completely ignoring the Kazekage. Your Uchiha is late, he gruffly pointed out. I hope you aren't thinking of stalling the match. The kid shouldn't get any special treatment. Sarutobi nodded his head. I agree, but let's wait for a couple of minutes, he suggested. Raisin nodded. TCH, this kid is a spoiled brat, thinking he can hold up the entire exams for a dramatic entrance. He smirked. Shame for the kid that En's going to kick his ass. It'll be interesting to see what Itachi's baby brother can do though. The crowd was beginning to get restless. Or where is the Uchiha? One of the civilians called down to Genma. Geez, Genma thought as the crowd continued to complain. Kakashi had to choose a bad time to rub off on his student with his tardiness. En was starting to get impatient. Come on you little emo asshole. When you show up I'll pound you into the ground. Don't kill him though, make him suffer, Kyuubi offered. I'm usually not the most violent of us, but I think I'll agree. But you are excited for this fight, aren't you? Why? Kyuubi asked. You know you can beat him. Everyone knows that. Well, except for those villagers, not that we care. It's obvious, isn't it? En said, I don't really care about fighting Sasuke per se. I want to see how I match up against the Uchiha. Kyuubi realized what he meant. Oh. You want to see how you would match up against Itachi. By fighting his brother you can gain experience, albeit minimal, to help you when you fight Itachi. Correct, you know how it is one of my goals to fight and beat Itachi-sensei. Doesn't every student wish to defeat his master? Itachi has always been so powerful. Granted he isn't arrogant like Sasuke, he is actually pretty humble. I'll have to undergo so much training to even hope to beat him. Even now with all my progress and my control over your chakra, I wouldn't beat him. He's just such a badass. Surprisingly I agree with you, Kyuubi said, but don't tell Nibi and Hachibi I said that. I don't want them to know I complimented an Uchiha, it'd ruin my reputation. And chuckled mentally, don't worry, your reputation will be saved. If you have a bad reputation then I'll get one since I'm your host. Genma looked at his watch. Only 10 more seconds until the Uchiha would be disqualified. He raised his hand in the air to announce it. Suddenly there was a soft wind, leaves scattering everywhere. And there in the middle of the arena, appeared Hatake Kakashi, reading his Aika as always, and Uchiha Sasuke. The crowd cheered as they saw the Uchiha appear. Sasuke-kun, Sakura thought in joy as she saw her beloved appear. Troublesome, Shikamaru thought. It's about time, Samui, Ko, Yujito, and Oma thought. Damn it, why doesn't get to fight that little asshole? Karui thought, hope he beats that emo prince into the ground. If not I'll join the fight and stab my electrified sword up his ass. Yeah, Karui was still pissed off about being called flat chest. People should always remember the most important thing if they ever meet her. Something that will save their lives. Never call her flat chest. And grinned. Looks like you made it, Uchiha. Sasuke smirked. Get ready, loser. Sasuke had changed his appearance. His hair was longer, and instead of his usually white and blue outfit he now wore pure black clothes with a high collar. White tape was wrapped around his arms. The Uchiha symbol was on his back. Nice hair, makes you look even more like a girl. Sasuke glared at the blonde. I'll kill you for that. Kakashi's shoes shined off the arena. He appeared behind his remaining 2 students, Sakura and Sai. Sakura didn't notice he was behind him, so when Sai said, "Hello, sensei," she jerked around in her seat. "Kakashi sensei." "Yo, Sakura, Sai," he greeted with the peace sign. "Where have you two been?" She accused her sensei. "You and Sasuke-kun have been gone the whole month." Ma. Kakashi, I smiled at the girl. "Well, we were training. Sasuke has a big fight coming up. It won't matter." Sakura was quick to defend her soul mate. "Sasuke-kun won't lose to that Kumo ninja loser." "Actually, you're wrong," Sai said as he looked at the match about to begin. "Dickless doesn't stand a chance against Yatsuki." Without even looking at her, Sai easily dodged the punch Sakura had aimed at his head. "Shut up, Sai Baka. Sasuke-kun will win no matter what. Right, Ino?" Sakura asked Ino, who was sitting by her wearing civilian clothes. After both their humiliating losses in the second exams, both Ino and Sakura realized that they had ended their friendship on foolish reasons and made up. Granted, Sakura was still a major fangirl, but then again, has she ever not been one? Ino didn't speak at first. She had seen the power and wielded both his raw power that held so much chakra to his controlled power. Wielded with such finesse it was even deadlier. She didn't think Sasuke had a chance. If she knew anything about the blonde, she would probably guess that the only reason the match would last a while was so that En could have some fun, not that he was having a challenge. Yeah, I guess, she pretended to agree with Sakura. They had just become friends again. She didn't want to break it again, especially for the same reason as last time. Sakura smirked at Sai and stuck her tongue out at the pale boy, who merely looked at her with a blank look before returning his gaze back to the arena. Kakashi heard footsteps and the sound of wood hitting against stone. He and the other rookies looked behind them to see Guy and Lee coming from one of the many entrances. Both looked the same as last month, except that Lee had bandages wrapped around certain appendages and was using crutches, hence the wood hitting against stone sound. "Lee," Sakura said, surprised to see the boy out of the hospital and walking about. Lee flashed Sakura a bright grin. "Hello, Sakura," he said cheerfully. "So you're out of the hospital," Tenten said to her teammate. It was obvious that she was happy to see him. Guy wrapped an arm around Lee's shoulders. Of course. Lee would never miss out on such a youthful event. An event where people from different lands come together to test and strengthen their youth shows that their flames of youth are roaring suns, Guy said as he and Lee shed tears of joy for the youth that was being shown in the arena. Guy, Kakashi spoke up, "I don't think the chunin exams were made for that reason." All the rookies agreed with him, even Tenten. Despite loving her sensei and teammate, their youth got annoying pretty fast. Guy's smile was wiped away. He pointed his finger accusingly at Kakashi. "Damn you and your cool hip attitude, Kakashi," he yelled, "and it appears your hip attitude has spread to these youthful genin, especially one of my students. Because of this unforgivable act, I challenge you to see if my bright flames of youth can melt your icy attitude." Kakashi sighed at Guy. He pointedly ignored the older clone and instead focused on Lee. "How are your wounds, Lee?" "I am fine, Kakashi-senpai," Lee said with a beaming smile. "Despite the wounds I suffered during me and En's match, it was not too bad. In fact, the doctors told me that En could have permanently crippled me, especially when he used that Liger Bomb jutsu, but he held back. En knew the extent of his strength and made sure that I wouldn't be crippled." By then Lee was crying streams of joyous tears. "Yash! Since En made sure he wouldn't cripple me during our fight, I will train even harder so that the next time we have a youthful meeting of fists, none of us will hold back at all." Lee yelled. "Attaboy, Lee!" Guy yelled. "Guy-sensei, Lee! Guy-sensei, Lee! Guy-sensei, Lee!" The two made to hug, but before they could, everyone else in the vicinity was saved by Kakashi, who held the two back. "You can hug later, the match is starting." Back in the arena, the third match will now begin. Uchiha Sasuke vs Yatsuki En, Genma announced as the crowd cheered on for the two fighters. Hajime, En got into a fighting style, his arms held up like a boxer. "I'll let him take the first hit," he decided, "see what he's learned." Sasuke smirked and then disappeared in a flash. En's eyes widened at the surprising speed, his senses tingled and he turned around to see Sasuke rushing at him. "Take this!" Sasuke yelled. He punched En in the chest with a powerful blow. En just stood there, he didn't look hurt at all. Sasuke's eyes widened when he saw his punch result in nothing. En's lightning-fast hand grabbed Sasuke by the throat and held him high in the air. Sasuke struggled to get out of his killer grip, but his hold on his neck was iron hard. En looked at the struggling boy. Many people would find it foolish to engage in taijutsu with someone easily better at it than you, but... He trailed off as he smirked. "I went in these exams to fight and see how I match up against other genin, and I'm expecting a fight." With the last word, a roar threw Sasuke across the entire field and smashing through the large concrete wall. Sasuke got out of the hole and glared at the blonde, he disappeared again, but this time it appeared he learned his lesson and was looking for a new way to hurt the Jinchuuriki. Sasuke ran in a circle around En. Dust was rushing up as he continued to run around him, looking for any weak spot. En, however, wasn't known to be the type to patiently wait as his opponent tried to find any weaknesses he could use against him. I'll keep my weights on, he thought. No need to give him an even bigger ego if he thinks I have to take off my weights to match his speed. Still, that speed is the same speed as Lee. How'd he get that? Everyone who had been in the tower was wondering the same thing. Yohachi, be said to his lifelong companion that dwelled inside him, how'd that Uchiha get so fast? But even then it won't matter since he is going up against Lil 9, he won't pass. Have I ever mentioned how much I wished I had been left in that ember sealing pot? Hachibi asked his very annoying host. Because if I could turn back the clocks of fate I'd stay into that damn pot, even if your father, brother, and the entire sealing corps were trying to rip me out of it and into you, I'd fight them to stay in that pot. He fell to the ground in grief, earning weird and confused looks from his students and Dari. Why don't you love me? He asked, more like whined, through the mental link. What isn't there to love? I'm the mighty killer bee. No, you're an idiot. While those two were arguing, the area where Sakura, Saino, and everyone else who lost the second exams were baffled by Sasuke's speed. It's like watching Lee. Sakura exclaimed with a smirk, thinking that En had no chance and was going to go down. Yeah, right. Lee and Guy were also surprised. He's as fast as Lee with his weights off. Guy thought as he glanced at his eternal rival, who was smiling at his student, and decided it was time to make his move. He rushed towards the spot he knew Sasuke would be in a moment's time. He was right as in the second it took him to reach the spot Sasuke appeared, and smirked as he felt his fist connect. He frowned slightly when he saw that Sasuke had managed to dodge it enough so it wouldn't hurt as much, and leaned back as he dodged a blurry of fist attacks from the emo. He grabbed Sasuke's wrist and pulled him closer, his leg already in the air to roundhouse kick him. He was surprised to see Sasuke smirk and dodge his kick, wasting no time and attack the boy with his own barrage of boxer-like punches. But Sasuke dodged all of them. What? How is he dodging my? And then he saw it. Sasuke's eyes were no longer black. They were a burning crimson. 2 tomos were in each eye. Sasuke had activated his Sharingan. And cursed, he hadn't thought Sasuke had not activated the Sharingan yet. No matter, he would still lose, even if he did have that certain bloodline. On the bright side, he could get in some fighting experience on how to fight Itachi if he had his Sharingan activated, so that was a plus for En. Sasuke flipped over En and used his elbow to try and punch En in the small of his back, but En easily dodged it and managed to turn around at the same time before punching Sasuke right in the chest, making him fly backwards. As Sasuke flew through the air and appeared behind him and kicked upwards, making the Uchiha fly up high into the air. Sasuke was busy forming hand seals as En appeared in the air, ready to beat the shit out of him. Katan, fireball Justu. Sasuke managed to yell out as he blew out a huge ball of fire at En before he could touch him. Sasuke smirked as he fell back to the ground and landed on his feet, the remains of his jutsu still burning. The famous Uchiha smirk was soon gone as he realized that there was no burning En but a piece of charred wood. Substitution, Sasuke realized. He saw something out of the corner of his eye and quickly dodged a large rock that was thrown at him, and looked at the boy with a bored expression. Is that all you can do? Just dodge? Sheesh, no wonder your clan was killed by a single person. Of course En knew the real reason of the massacre as Itachi had told him when En had asked why he was in Konoha. He had a burning hatred for the Hokage's advisors and some unknown man named Danzo. Sasuke was trembling in pure rage. How dare this idiot mock him, and to bring up the sensitive subject of his now-killed clan. And their murderer, his brother Itachi. A man Sasuke hated more than anything, a man who Sasuke wanted to kill. Sasuke grabbed a scroll from his pouch, a storage seal, and noticed with interest. He swiped blood on it. There was a puff of smoke and a sword appeared. He knows Kenjutsu? And thought, well, let's see how he can fight against my 7 swords dance. This guy is just asking for an ass whipping. But when Sasuke went into a Kenjutsu dance, En and the Kumogakure ninja's jaw fell down in disbelief. Sasuke's stance was very familiar to En, the way he bent his knees and looked ready to move at a moment's notice while still getting in some deadly damage. You! En growled out. Underneath his sunglasses his eyes were bright red and slitted. He pointed at the smirking Sasuke, who seemed pleased with the anger and disbelief he was getting out of the boy. No way! Yujuto muttered as she gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. The metal was crushed under her killer grip. Yujuto leaned forward and inspected the Uchiha, trying to see if it was the real deal, or he was playing with them. That bastard, Karui spat out as she glared at Sasuke with loathing in her golden eyes. Even Oma looked angry, and Oma rarely got angry. I can't believe it, so that's why he was there, he muttered darkly. Ko's eyes were narrowed as he glared at the Uchiha. He is nothing like Itachi, he's an arrogant asshole, he thought as he smirked. That idiot, and's going to kill him. Samui didn't say anything, though anyone who knew her could tell she was boiling inside. B was frowning. Not cool, Bakayaro Kanayaro. He stopped leaning against the wall of the area the competitors were in, and leaned against the railing and like Yujito was looking to see if it was real. Darui was looking at the Uchiha with steeled eyes, but he didn't say anything, though you could tell he was angry. Shikamaru glanced at the obviously angry Kumogakure Genin and Jonin before glancing at the angry En, troublesome. It's obvious Sasuke just crossed a line. That stance? That's Samui's Kenjutsu stance. And yelled at the boy, his face red with anger, but underneath his realization was burning in his crimson eyes. That's why you were spying on us when we were training. You were using your Sharingan to copy us. Sasuke's smirk got even bigger. We are ninja. We cheat, we scam, we copy, and we steal. Don't make it seem like I'm the first one to do something like that. We're ninja, we don't play fair. And chuckled. Sasuke bristled. What's so funny, loser? He demanded, and smirked at the boy. You're right, we don't play fair. All of a sudden there were flashes of bright lights as 7 swords flew up high in the air. They arced and spun, and then each one landed on their right place. Sasuke and the Konoha crowd were stunned to see the rapper wielding 7 swords, and judging by the smirks on Kumo's face, he could use it for fights. Alright. And said, though the sound was muffled slightly by the sword in his mouth. Let's do this. With Kakashi and the others, Sakura and Ino gaped at the strange stance. Sai's face flashed to shock and surprise but quickly went back to its normal indifferent state. Tenten surprisingly gave a small squeal, something entirely out of her character, and her eyes turned into stars as she stared at the different yet fascinating Kenjutsu stance. Being a weapon expert, she could easily tell that despite it looking that En couldn't move, she knew better. She made a mental note to ask him about what types of swords those were and maybe ask how he thought of such a unique stance. And no way. Sakura continued to gap. There is no way he can fight like that. It's impossible. Kakashi looked worried for a second before the expression was gone. Remember, Sakura, the impossible is always possible to ninja. This kid is easily going to become an S-rank nin in the future. Choji looked at the Sharingan wielder in shock. No way, Kakashi-senpai. Sure, he knows the lightning armor and that Kenjutsu stance, but he can't become an S-rank nin. S-rank ninja are Kage level. Maybe you're right, Kakashi said, and Sakura smiled. I think he may become even greater than S-rank. Lee gapped at the man. He glanced at his sensei and idol, but even Guy looked like he agreed with him. He turned his attention back to the fight. In the arena, time to see whose blades are sharper. You may have copied down some techniques, but you've never practiced them every single day. I'm gonna kick your ass. Sasuke rushed forward, his sword ready to pierce En's flesh. He was hoping that since En was only on one foot he would be off-balanced. What he didn't expect was for En to leap into the air, as he hung above Sasuke and suddenly started to spin fast. Sasuke barely had time to dodge as one of En's swords pierced towards him. Only sheer luck did he not get pierced. Sasuke quickly used his newfound speed to dodge the other remaining swords as they pelted towards him. He cursed that he couldn't get near En, as whenever he made a move another sword would try to pierce him. When En ran out of swords he did some flips, and as he did it he used his appendages to move the sword to certain places on his body. En cartwheeled towards Sasuke with surprising speed. Sasuke thought that his Sharingan would help him, but to his surprise he couldn't copy the movement. All the Jonin and Kage watching knew why. En's attacks were so sudden and random, there was no pattern. The Sharingan was useless. Sasuke quickly leaned to the side as En appeared in front of him. On his hands. He dodged a kick, but as he did so he didn't notice a sword held by En's leg and thigh. He gasped in pain as the sharp sword sliced his thigh. Blood flowed through the wound. Sasuke gritted his teeth but didn't back down. His body followed one of Samui's attacks. There was a clang. En had gotten back to his feet, and was holding one of his swords against Sasuke's. Drill! En yelled as he channeled chakra to his feet and legs and began to rapidly spin like a top. Sasuke felt himself being cut up. He channeled chakra to his feet and jumped up high into the air. Katan, fire ball jutsu. The ball of roaring fire headed towards En, who disappeared in a flash. Sasuke felt a shadow on him. He barely had time to look up as En's foot connected with his neck. Drop kick! En yelled one of his eldest brother's favorite jutsu to punish him and be when they messed around, save his iron claw. Sasuke was slammed into the ground, causing a gigantic crater. A large cloud of dust gathered around the two. The crowd was silent as they realized this was near the end of the match. inside the swirling cloud of dust, and looked down at the fallen Uchiha. Under his shades he was looking at the Uchiha with disgust, but Sasuke could tell anyway. As En looked at his fallen enemy, he suddenly had a flashback of before they were to leave to Konoha, about his opponent's brother and his sensei. Flashback. En was casually leaning against a large tree branch on one of the tall mountainsides. The sun was setting and from his viewpoint he could see the entire village. He always loved this place, his little haven. He loved to look down at the village he had sworn to protect, where the people he had promised to shield lived, where the friends he had made lived and protected as well. He was fiddling with his pen. This was also a good place for inspiration for his raps, though he never told anyone. I would have smashed the tree to 1,000,000 pieces whilst Yujito would have burned down the remains. And smiled. What's up, Itachi-sensei? Itachi Uchiha was standing on the steep slope of the mountain by his student. He had a soft smile, which for him was a beaming smile for En. I heard you were to go participate in the chunin exams. En nodded. I have a mission too, concerning your brother. Itachi looked at him with curiosity, and told him the mission to kick his baby brother's ass. Itachi gazed down at his new home. He pondered on what En had told him, and his blonde student looked at him. When you fight my brother, I want you to fight him with all you got. Don't go easy on him. And when he loses, I want you to tell him something. En looked at Itachi with curiosity. What do you want me to say? Flashback end. Weak. En murmured darkly, but Sasuke still heard him. Sasuke weakly lifted his head to glare at the boy, his Sharingan having deactivated. Even after all this time you are still so weak, always running, always clinging to your pitiful life. Sasuke's eyes widened and he gasped. He remembered the night that changed his whole life, and the night he had become the Avenger. The night his clan was massacred. His brother's words rang in his head. There is no value in killing the likes of you, my foolish brother. If you want to kill me, curse me, hate me, and live a long and unsightly life. Run away, and cling to your pitiful life. For 1 second Sasuke saw Itachi instead of En standing in his ANBU garb, his blade stained with the blood of their parents and kinsmen, his ice-cold eyes looking into his own. The mirage vanished as En crouched down by him. You call yourself an Avenger, Sasuke, but all I see is a weakling. Sasuke glared at the boy. He cursed his limbs that refused to aid him. Tell me, how can you hope to kill Itachi, if you can't even kill me? En asked. Where is he? Sasuke snarled. Don't deny it, you know. En shrugged. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Not like you'll ever find out. The dust cleared and everyone saw the downed form of Sasuke, and threw 6 swords into the air, and they all landed in their sheaths. The final one he placed in the bottom holder, and glanced down at the Uchiha. I'm usually not one to say this, but give up. You can't beat him, much less kill him. Just continue on with your pitiful existence. The third match is over, Genma yelled to the crowd. The winner is Yatsuki En. The Kumogakure ninja roared their approval. In the Kage box, well, it looks like the famed Uchiha lost, she said to A with a smirk. He noticed the Kazekage looking at the scene disgruntled. Sarutobi sighed. The boy is quick to anger. It'll be his downfall. Still, your son shows great promise. I think he is ready to be a chunin, maybe even becoming a jonin. Raisin smiled proudly at En, who was slowly walking back to the booth. I agree, though I think I'll keep him from becoming a jonin. It'll just boost up his huge ego if I made him a jonin so soon. And he wouldn't stop the raps that came with the promotion. A muttered, not to mention B would be more than happy to help with that. Gods, do those two ever not write raps on any daily event? I'd bet if there was a robbery they would have a whole album done. C chuckled. True, but at least they take out the tension in our lives. Still annoying, A grumbled. Damn it, Sasuke-kun lost, Orochimaru thought, though it will be easier to kidnap him and bring him to my side. No doubt this defeat is a huge blow to his pride. If I kill that and then he'd see me as a useful master, and his body will be mine. He motioned one of his bodyguards over. Get the signal ready, it's happening now. Hi, the man spoke softly before shining away. Raisin leaned forward, his eyebrows furrowed. The Uchiha is moving. Everyone looked back down at the scene. Back in the arena, Sasuke gritted his teeth. He clenched his fists. He slowly got up to his feet. He quickly formed hand seals and chakra appeared in his palm. The chakra turned into lighting. And hadn't noticed yet, he was still walking back towards the stands. Before Genma could intervene, Sasuke had rushed towards En as fast as he could. All he could see was red and En's back. En tensed and a crackle of lightning appeared on him. Within a second he was in full lightning armor, not holding back at all. Chidori! He screamed as he reached En. His electrified fist hit En's lightning-covered chest. The sound of flesh being pierced rang through the silent arena. Blood splattered on the dusty ground. Sasuke coughed up blood. He glanced at his hand and saw that there was no gaping hole like on the boulders he had struck during the month off. His hand was merely pressed against En's unharmed chest. Sasuke glanced down and saw En's fist, lodged in his gut. Attacking behind someone's back, En growled, especially after the match had been called. Disgraceful. En pulled his fist out of Sasuke's gut. The Uchiha fell to his knees clutching his wound. En glanced at Genma, who seemed too shocked to do anything. A figure appeared beside Sasuke. Kakashi was looking at his student with shame. He placed a hand on his shoulder and they both vanished, only a couple leaves remaining in their places. En snorted and disappeared in a flash of red lightning before appearing before his genin comrades. Yujito rushed over and checked over the boy to see if the Chidori had actually harmed him. In the Kage box, shit, was all she thought as he and a couple of Kumogakure Storm and Jonin appeared in the Kage box as they all struggled to hold back the gigantic angry behemoths aka and the Raikage. See! Roared at his teammate who was holding him back along with 5 Storm, the Raikage being held back the same. Let me go! I'm going to kill that little dash. I'll RIP him apart. Raisin roared, how dare he use an A-rank assassination on MY boy. Especially when the match was over and he had his back turned. Raikage-sama. One of the Storms struggled to say as he tried to hold the gigantic man back. Please calm down. Shut up, Heron. Raisin yelled, I'll kill him. Sarutobi was looking at the man worriedly. He knew of Raisin's strength during their youth. Add on to the fact that he had his eldest son with him, and his eyes were burning with a fierce protectiveness only a father could hope to achieve when their child was in danger. Shit was going to hit the fan if they didn't calm down. Raikage Dano, I promise young Sasuke will pay for his consequences. While we are ninja, it is disgraceful to attack an opponent when the match was already done, Sarutobi said. Raisin growled, but he cooled down. He was in an enemy village. Now was not the time to kill a genin, even if that genin was a fucking asshole. Once the Storm realized that the Raikage and they were not about to charge down to the arena, they shushined away. Only 2 guards were supposed to be in the box. This is the perfect time, Orochimaru thought. I have to do it now, with the others. What an asshole, Karui muttered. Yujito nodded her head in agreement. If I ever meet that guy outside of this country and on a mission, I'm setting him on fire. After I cut him into little pieces. You are so overprotective over your mate, aren't you? Nibi purred. Yujito sighed at the 2 tails. B was crouched next to his brother. Are you sure you're okay? This ain't the time to lie, but trust me, the Uchiha is going to pay. I'm fine, brother, and said for the 100th time. I should have hurt him more, tch I was soft. Should have punched him through some more walls, maybe set him on fire and electrocute him. B slapped the boy on the back with a grin. That's the spirit, he said cheerfully. When you fight him it'll be like a lion fighting a cricket. Darui was standing near them. Are you sure you're okay? That wasn't the dull jutsu. That was Kakashi Hataki's Chidori, the lightning cutter. An A-rank assassination jutsu. If you hadn't used your armor you could be dead now. Good thing I used it then, and said, look it alright sensei. The mission is done. I got to kick ass. Everybody wins. Darui sighed at his student's antics. I guess, he smiled. Your dad is proud of you, though judging from those roars earlier I don't think he and A took kindly to the fact that the Uchiha tried to actually kill you. And glanced up at the Kage box. He easily saw his brother and father. He saw them smiling proudly at him, and he felt himself grinning in joy and pride. And then the Kage box exploded in a cloud of smoke. Chapter 21, Invasion of the Leaf. Dad/Raikage-sama. The Kumogakure shinobi and Quinochi yelled as they saw the Kage box explode. Smoke clung to the area, making it impossible to see through it. And leapt to his feet and was about to jump to the Kage box, but a hand grabbed his shoulder and turned his head around ready to attack the person. His fist stopped when he saw that it was Darui who had stopped him. Sensei, what are you doing? Dad and brother are in danger. And don't rush off. Darui looked pained. Something isn't right. I think an invasion is going on. The genin gaped at the man. An invasion? Ko questioned in disbelief. Who would attack Konoha? Die. They all turned around to see a Suna ninja leaping at them, a kunai in his hand and a look of pure anger and bloodlust in his eyes. B appeared on the man's right side and with a powerful kick sent him into the stands, where he remained either dead or unconscious. Sunagakure is attacking, Yujito said in surprise, but they are allies with Konoha. Why would they do this? I don't know, Yujito-chan, and said grimly as he grabbed one of his many swords, but I have a feeling that we're going to be fighting. B. Get over here. Darui yelled to the younger Jonin, who quickly appeared in front of his friend and comrade. Darui, what should we do? B asked, for once not in rhymes due to the severity of the situation as he looked at the older and more experienced ninja. Darui closed his eyes tightly for a moment, trying to figure out what to do. His eyes snapped open as he looked at his comrades with steeled eyes. We must protect Daimyo-sama. He is without a doubt one of the people the invaders will go after. If they capture him, then they can easily weaken or blackmail Kumogakure. Kill anyone who tries to attack you, whether it is leaf, sand. He noticed some Oto ninja attacking a Konoha ninja, or sound. Every saluted their captain. Hi. They all spread out, Team B heading towards the area where the lightning daimyo was at, Ko. And yelled as he punched an Oto nin into a wall, "Go protect Daimyo-sama." Ko nodded and rushed towards the daimyo area, quickly taking out a Suna nin sneaking up on Omoi. As this was happening in the Kage box, Sarutobi was calmly sitting in his chair while the smoke swirled around him. What is the meaning of this, Kazekage-dan, Raikage Dano? Sarutobi saw the slight confusion in Raisin's eyes, but otherwise the man didn't seem to be emotionally affected. When he looked at the Kazekage, all he saw was bloodlust. His eyes widened. 2 squads of Konoha A and B were rushing towards the Kage box. One team went to protect the daimyos whilst the other headed towards Kage. Before they could reach the box, the 2 Suna bodyguards appeared out of the smoke. "You're in the way!" The lead A and B yelled as he appeared in the middle of the 2, and with 2 slashes of his sword he sliced the Suna ninja in halves. They continued to rush towards the box. They stopped when they heard a cry of pain and the sound of metal piercing flesh. The smoke cleared slightly and you could see the Hokage's bodyguard, Reito, with several kunai in his chest. He staggered against the wall and made eye contact with his Kage, Hokage-sama. He managed to say despite the blood coming out of his mouth, "Please. Flee." He slumped to the ground, dead. The ANBU heard movements behind them and they saw 4 figures emerge from the supposedly dead Suna bodyguards. They all went to the 4 corners of the large golden roof. There were 3 men and 1 woman. The Kazekage appeared behind the 3rd Hokage, a kunai placed on the old man's neck. He grabbed the elderly Kage and jumped onto the top of the large roof. "Do it!" The Kazekage commanded as he saw the ANBU rushing towards them. "Yes, sir." The unknown Oto ninja sighed as they formed a single-hand seal. "Ninja art, 4 flames formation!" They all yelled as one. A large dark purple barrier formed into existence, completely boxing in the 2 Kage. One of the dark-robed ANBU with purple markings on their masks couldn't change direction in the air. He hit the barrier and with a cry of pain he erupted in flames. The remaining 3 ANBU stopped when they saw their comrade fall. "Barrier," the leader said with a slight curse, seeing no way to break it. Suddenly there was a crackle of lighting and someone breaking the sonic barrier. 2 large shapes struck the glowing barrier, but instead of catching a flame, that part of the barrier shattered as the 2 figures entered the closed-off part. The barrier quickly fixed the hole, leaving no way in for the others. The Kazekage and Hokage's eyes widened when they saw just exactly who had broken through an S-rank barrier with ease. Orochimaru cursed heatedly in his head. The 3rd Raikage and future 4th Raikage of Kumogakure no Sato were standing on the opposite side of the roof from them. They were casually walking, but anyone could see that they were tense and ready for a fight. "Attacking your own allies," Raisin shook his head. "Even I have to admit that's slow." "Why are you doing this, Kazekage-dano?" Sarutobi demanded the man who held a kunai at his neck. The wind shadow looked at the fire shadow with the look of a madman. He chuckled deeply. "I'm surprised you didn't figure it out, Sarutobi-sensei." The Hokage widened his eyes in shock. Raisin gritted his teeth as he realized that the real Kazekage was probably dead, and this man was Orochimaru. Roared, his face red with anger as he started to tremble in rage, lighting starting to spark around him. He was about to step forward, but the Raikage put a hand on his chest. He looked at his father in confusion, but Raisin shook his head. "Wait." The Kazekage chuckled again. He grabbed the mask and ripped it off along with his skin. Instead of the tan skin of the 4th Kazekage, it revealed pale skin, golden eyes, small purple markings. Orochimaru of the Sannin. "Dad, brother." Everyone heard a familiar voice. And appeared on the outside of the barrier, Yujito behind him. En and Yujito didn't appear harmed, but both paled when they saw the 2 in a standoff with Orochimaru of the Sannin. "En! Yujito!" The Raikage barked, "Get out of here! Dad, Suna and Oto are attacking. What do you want us to do?" En asked as he tried to not freak out seeing his brother and father about to be in a pretty hard death match. Everyone was silent. Whatever the Kage said would affect the rest of the battle. Orochimaru chuckled. "Tell me, Raikage Dano, why fight for Konoha?" he asked. "You are not allied with them, in fact your enemies. Why risk having your shinobi being killed for the leaf? You may lose prominent chunin, jonin, your children." Sarutobi said nothing as Orochimaru listed off the reasons why they should not aid Konoha. He had a sinking feeling knowing that Orochimaru was right. Raisin pondered his next move. On one hand, they had no reason to be in this fight. On the other, Orochimaru had created bases in his land, he had kidnapped his subordinates, he had experimented on his people. And Yujito. Raisin barked at his son and surrogate daughter, protect Konoha. Attack any Suna or Oto ninja, don't hold back. And with a bellow that echoed through the entire arena, Kumogakure. Help defend Konoha. They all heard a multitude of hi. As the Cloud Ninja fought against the sound and sand, En and Yujito nodded, hi. They both yelled. Orochimaru frowned. And why would you ally yourselves with the Leaf? They are your enemies. Smirked, that may be true, but you are too. He glared at the Sannin. You really didn't think we wouldn't find out about you kidnapping our people and experimenting on them, did you? En Yujito. Get out of here, we have this, the third Raikage said gruffly. Right. And grabbed Yujito's hand. Come on, Yujito-chan. Let's go kick some invading butt. The two dashed off. A couple of cried pains quickly followed as the Suna and Oto ninja found themselves being attacked by the two Jinchuuriki. Well then, Raisin cracked his knuckles, a motion followed by a. They each had the same smirk of their face. Shall we get to business? Sakura screamed shrilly as an Oto ninja leapt at her with a kunai at the ready. She closed her eyes and held her hands in front of her face, as though that would stop the ninja. There was the sound of flesh hitting flesh and a cry of pain. Kakashi appeared in front of his student, the Oto ninja being kicked into the ground. Sakura, Kakashi told his student, don't worry, I won't let anyone hurt you, wake up the others. He motioned towards the passed-out genin who had fallen asleep due to the genjutsu that had been cast when the Kage box had exploded. Sakura nodded and went down to the floor. She quickly crawled over to Choji and Ino. She formed several hand seals and whispered Kai, breaking the genjutsu and waking up the 2/3 of the next Ino she could show. Sakura, what's going on? Choji asked, as he glanced around the area blinking his eyes blearily. Sakura saw something glint in front of them. Look out! She cried as she pushed Choji aside. Several kunai struck the wood where Choji had been sitting moments before. Choji crashed to the floor and backpedaled away from the chair. He didn't realize he was now out of the seats and was in the aisle, completely visible. Choji! Ino and Sakura screamed as a Oto ninja appeared behind Choji, a sword ready to stab the chubby boy. Wee! A war cry rang across the entire arena. The Oto ninja was immediately punched through the thick concrete wall, and landed in the hallway dead. It was then revealed that Choji's savior was none other than Killer Bee. He flashed the Akamichi with a grin. You alright, kid? This is a war, ain't no time to fib. Yosh! Guy yelled as he punched a Suna ninja in the face, making him fly 20 meters through the air and crashing to the ground, forming a large crater. It seems that your youthful village has decided to help us fend off against these unyouthful attackers, Guy said with a beaming smile, with the usual twinkle shining in his teeth. The Suna ninja who had appeared in front of Guy staggered back as he was momentarily blinded by the smile, which of course gave Guy enough time to give the poor sap a heavy roundhouse kick. Killer Bee looked around the area. In the air there were sparks as ninja clashed against each other. All the civilians and low-ranking ninja were passed out in their seats. Luckily enough, that helped them. It would be harder to fight through a crowd of panicking civilians. 3 Suna ninja rushed towards the dark-skinned rapper. Bee formed a couple hand seals. Right on. Electric murder. He smashed his hands against the ground. A huge crater formed and a large amount of deadly lighting rushed through the ground, turning the compact concrete into rubble, and electrocuting the Sunagakure ninja. Bee heard a smashing sound behind him. He glanced behind him to see Choji smashing an Oto nin against the wall with a gigantic arm. Bee gave the boy a thumbs up. Nice. En was covered in his lighting release armor. He punched an Oto ninja into the ground before reappearing behind another invader before the ninja meet the same fate as the first. Die. And saw a Suna ninja running at him with a raised sword. Yujito suddenly appeared, kicking the man into the ground, causing a large crater. Yujito. And pointed towards a group of Oto ninja. Crisp M. Got it. She yelled Katan, roaring Azul streams. Instead of the usual orange or reddish fire, dark blue fire erupted from her mouth. One of the Oto ninja brought up a water shield, but it did little to no good against Yujito's superior flames. Kit! Kyuubi spoke as En dodged a sword before kicking the man in the chest. What Q? I'm a little busy here. En said as he continued to dodge blows. He managed to defeat most of the attackers. Whoever he didn't finish off, Yujito was quick to aid him. You've forgotten something, the great just said. Think, Suna is attacking. What do you think they are planning to do? I've noticed that they are attacking Baka, and responded angrily as he punched a ninja that had been sneaking up on Yujito. But then his posture left his body slack. Gaara, shit. And mumbled Yujito, we have to find Gaara. Suna is probably going to use him, and we all know how much damage a Jinchuuriki can make. Yujito nodded her head. She closed her eyes and formed a single hand seal as she searched for his chakra, and defending her in case someone tried to attack her when she was vulnerable. Yujito's slitted eyes snapped open. I found him. He's in the forest with his siblings. There are some other signatures around him. I think they may be Leaf. We need to hurry. Gaara's chakra is increasing by the minute. I think he is trying to transform. And curse, then let's go. He dashed off towards the direction of their fellow Jinchuuriki. The two were blurs as they raced through Konoha's forest. They passed Shikamaru, who had just finished his battle with some of the sound ninja. They didn't stop but kept on running towards the area they knew Gaara was in. They rushed past the battle between Shino and Kankuro. Like in the second exams, Kankuro had been defeated by the bug user. Shino saw them rush past them and gave them a curt nod. I sense him, and said curtly as they nearly reached the area where they sensed Gaara, along with his sister, and wait, is it those two? And questioned. The Nibi and Kyuubi Jinchuuriki stopped on a large tree branch and examined the scene in front of them. There was Sai, breathing deeply as he clutched at a wound in his side, Sakura, who was passed out against a tree being crushed by a large hand made of sand. Temari was at the outskirts of the battlefield, looking at Gaara with fear. Gaara didn't look the same. Half his body was bigger and seemed to be made of sand. His left cold teal eye was now gold with a star and 4 dots in it. If anyone besides Yujito and saw him, they would think they had stumbled across a monster. Instead, they had stumbled upon a Jinchuuriki out of control. Gaara swiveled his head to the 2 other Jinchuuriki. A bloodthirsty grin formed on his face. He chuckled deeply, with a small hint of insanity behind the tone. Finally, I finally found you. Sand swirled around him protectively, but some of it looked ready to attack the 2 blondes. Come on. Make me feel alive. Let me rip you apart so your blood will stain my sand. Let me prove my existence. With the Kage, Orochimaru quickly dodged a large fireball, courtesy of his old sensei. He sensed it appear behind him, and was thrown into the ground, creating a rather large crater. Orochimaru chuckled as he stood up. He looked unharmed. He formed several hand seal, Edo Tensei. 3 coffins appeared in front of him. That's... Sarutobi gasped as he looked at the coffins. The one on the right was labeled first, the other second, and the final and closest one was labeled fourth. So you managed to complete it, huh? Sarutobi said as he looked at his student in shame. You managed to complete the Edo Tensei. Edo Tensei? A question as he and his father appeared on either side of the Hokage. I recognize that name. Is it that Justin? The Raikage asked the Hokage. Being as old as Sarutobi, the Raikage knew about the second Hokage and the Edo Tensei, though Tobirama had never used the jutsu like Orochimaru was now. Sarutobi responded by throwing kunai at the 4th coffin, quickly followed by another katan jutsu. The coffin crumbled and fell to the ground. A person was in the pile of debris. It didn't take any guesses to know that he was dead. What the? Who is that? I asked his dad. They didn't know who the man was, but they caught sight of an Odo Hyutate. A's eyes narrowed. You used your own shinobi as sacrifices. Oh, calm down, brat, Orochimaru said with a smirk. They are just cannon fodder. The only thing they helped me was to use their souls for this. The 2 remaining coffins opened. 2 figures stepped out. All the Kage and future Kage couldn't help but stare in shock, even the ANBU watching the battle, and doing absolutely nothing to try and aid their leader, gasped as they recognized the 2 men. The first and second Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato were staring at the 3 men with dead black eyes. With En and Yujito, Gaara gripped the tree branch that supported his weight, then he threw himself at En and Yujito, fast. The 2 thought as they jumped to safety as the branch they had been standing in was smashed to 1,000 pieces by Gaara. Damn it, Yujito thought as Gaara's gigantic sand arm chased after her. She threw several kunai with exploding tags on them at the gigantic hand. But even with that much firepower, the arm wasn't severely damaged. Die! Gaara screamed as Yujito found herself backed against a tree. The hand smashed into the tree. Gaara smiled, but it disappeared when he realized that the only thing he had crushed was the tree and a log. Yujito appeared above him. Katan, fire ball jutsu. She called out as she exhaled a gigantic ball of fire that headed towards the Ichibi Jinchuuriki. Gaara's sand shield formed above him protectively. As soon as the jutsu ended, long streams of sand shot towards Yujito, who couldn't move as she was falling. The first stream of sand missed Yujito by an inch. She quickly slid down the sand, and she jumped off it as sharp spikes formed where she had been before. The other streams quickly followed Yujito. There was the sound of a sword slicing those things. The sand that had almost reached Yujito was sliced in half and fell to the forest floor. Yujito landed on a tree branch as En appeared by her. He was wielding a sword and had been the one to cut the sand. Yujito flashed the boy a small smile. Thanks for the save, Enkuin. And smiled back. No problem, Yujito-chan. Look out. The two scattered as Gaara shot off towards them. This time he went for En. And noticed that Gaara now had a large tail. As he dodged the gigantic arm, Gaara's tail appeared out of nowhere and hit the blonde Jinchuuriki, making him crash through multiple trees. Ow! And mumbled as he slowly got up. He saw Gaara's hand rushing towards him. En's chakra flared as his lightning armor appeared around him. He rushed forward and he and the hand connected, and continued to run, the sand being turned to dust as it hit the crackling red lightning that surrounded our favorite Jinchuuriki. En appeared behind Gaara. Slowly but surely Gaara's entire sand hand lost its form and fell to the ground. Gaara glared at En with pure rage. He suddenly cried in pain as he clutched his head. Shikaku was demanding he killed them. I won't lose, Gaara said darkly as the sand gourd broke up and covered the enraged boy. The sand formed around him. Dark blue veins formed, the sand forming in a certain shape. En and Yujito were soon looking at a miniature Shikaku. He's completely lost control, and said to Yujito. Both looked alarmed. Do you think this would happen to us? No, it wouldn't, Kyuubi said. Granted, there is always the chance you may lose control, but you won't turn into chibi forms of us. Well, not like that at least. How are we going to take him down? If this keeps up, we may be fighting against the actual Shikaku, Yujito stated. Hee. Gaara chuckled, and Yujito both saw spittle spraying out of his mouth. En's nose scrunched up and he held up a hand. Okay, dude, you need some breath mints, he said as he waved the smell away from his nose. Gaara crossed his arms in an X. Sand shuriken. Dozens of sand shuriken appeared out of his arms and raced towards the two blonde Jinchuuriki, and jumped in front of Yujito just in time as the shuriken neared them. All of the sand shuriken that hit En either bounced off or broke as they hit his right arm. No Yoroi. Why are you two so persistent? Gaara snarled. Just let me kill you already. Thanks for the offer, but I think we'll pass, Yujito said. Even though Gaara's face was completely covered in sand and in the shape of his bju, the two could see confusion in his features and eyes. Why? The Kumogakure genin looked at the redhead in confusion as well. Why do you work together? Why do you protect each other? Gaara yelled. Why do you care about each other? Gaara fell to his knees. Why aren't you like me? He whispered as he looked at his monstrous-looking claws. He looked back up and glared at the two. Why do you care about someone who is not yourself? I saw you protect her from my sand. Why is that? There's only one way to be strong, Gaara snarled. I fight only for myself. I love only myself. I care only for myself. Why aren't you like me? He screamed. You are Jinchuuriki too. Yet I've seen you with each other, and those other people from your village. You all care about one another. Why? Why aren't you a demon like me? Gaara, the two said as one, pity filling their tones. They knew that they had an easier life compared to most Jinchuuriki. But what kind of hell did Gaara go through that he believed that he was a demon and didn't need love to survive? Sai's eyes narrowed. He had been near unconsciousness, but he was close enough to the battle he could hear what was going on, yet not getting in the way of the firepower. Kumogakure had another Jinchuuriki, besides the Hachibi and Nibi? Lord Danzo needed to know this. I will kill you! I will prove my existence! Gaara yelled. A large tower of sand rose to the air. There was a large cloud of smoke that enveloped the area. Crap, Yujito and En thought as they now gazed upon the full glory of the Ichibi. The size of the Raikage building, maybe even bigger, the Ichibi looked slightly like a raccoon, its golden eyes glaring down at them, blue markings covering it. Q, I don't suppose you know how to take this guy down without you actually appearing, do you? En asked his bju. Temari was trembling. He finally did it, the perfect possession. She looked at the form her baby brother had taken with fear. She remembered the last time this had happened. In their village, so many deaths, and Gaara was happy about it. Happy to prove his existence. Yujito, we need to use our bju's chakra, and said. Yujito was about to protest, seeing as how many risks they would be taking, when she noticed En was panting slightly. She remembered that the invasion had happened right after his match, and while he wasn't exhausted, that coupled on with fighting off invaders and Gaara. Yujito nodded. She closed her eyes. Nibi, let's do this. Right, kitten? Chakra formed around Yujito, not enough for a cloak but enough to use the initial state. En, however, was covered in a one-tailed state. Get ready, Yujito-chan. I'm evening the score. He bit his finger and formed hand seals, summoning jutsu. A cloud of smoke easily the size of the Ichibi erupted where the two had stood. The smoke cleared to reveal En and Yujito standing on the gigantic head of Gamabunta, the chief toad. What the? Where am I? Gamabunta rumbled out as he looked around the area, his eyes resting on the Ichibi. Boss Toad. And jumped down on his nose. Oh, it's you, En. What's going on? Why is the Ichibi in front of us? Konoha is being invaded. And explained. Gamabunta's eyes widened. What? By who? Sunigekure and Odogekure. Orochimaru is in a fight with Pops, Bro, and the Hokage. Me and Yujito-chan went after Gaara, the Ichibi Jinchuuriki. We were doing fine until he completely transformed. Gamabunta breathed out a puff of smoke from his pipe. So Sunigekure has betrayed their allies. Very well, brat, I'll help you deal with this guy. Jiraiya wouldn't exactly be pleased if he found out I was summoned during the invasion and didn't help out. Speaking of that, Yujito said, where the hell is the perv? Why isn't he helping? He's one of the Sannin, surely he could help take down the snake freak. Gamabunta sighed. According to Gamahiro, Jiraiya left the village a couple days ago, something about needing new research for his books. Yujito and En looked at each other in disbelief. He left to go peeking. Yujito exclaimed with a twitching brow. Geez, pervy sage, En mumbled. Jiraiya's habits aside, Gamabunta unsheathed his huge sword and held it at the ready. I believe we have some ass to kick. Gamabunta jumped up high in the air, En and Yujito only staying on by channeling chakra to their feet, and managed to close the distance between summon and Ju in a few mere seconds. The sword hit the Shikaku's right shoulder. For a second nothing happened, but then Gamabunta jumped again as the entire arm was cut off. Interesting, Gaara's voice boomed throughout the forest. Very interesting, Yatsuki-en. What, I don't get any death threats from overgrown raccoons? Yujito muttered where En and Gamabunta laughed. Sand swirled on the Ichibi's forehead. The figure of Gaara appeared from within the hand. Gaara spoke softly. The Jinchuuriki could barely hear him due to the distance. To thank you for entertaining me up till now, I'll show you the real power of the sand spirit. Gaara's eyes were no longer the ice-cold teal. Instead, the iris and pupil had disappeared, leaving his eyes to be pure white. Anyone else getting a bad feeling about this? En asked as Gaara formed the ram's seal and gritted his teeth in concentration. Gaara then slunched forward, eyes closed. He was asleep. The Ichibi's pale yellow eyes suddenly changed to bright gold. The star and spots swirled before setting back in its place even bigger. A shriek of insane laughter echoed throughout the battlefield. The Ichibi, the real Ichibi, had awakened. This isn't good, said to the others as he dodged a kick to the head by the second Hokage. The second continued on with an onslaught of fast and deadly punches, but A managed to dodge them easily. Hokage or not, the second wasn't known for his taijutsu, that was A's specialty. He didn't underestimate the man though. A disappeared and reappeared behind the second. He rammed his elbow into the man's back, sending him flying forward. Right into the arms of the third Raikage. Raisin held the man in a chokehold. He jerked his arms and ripped the man's head off. The body fell to the ground. Raisin jumped away as the neck slowly started to grow again, until Tobirama's head was back on his body. Sarutobi was in a death match with the first Hokage, roof tile shuriken. He stomped his foot on the ornate roof. A multitude of tiles rose in the air, spun, before shooting off towards the first Hokage. Hashirama dodged the first couple of unique shuriken. One appeared in front of him, and he punched it, making it shatter. Doton, Earth Dragon Jutsu. Earth flew out of the elderly man's mouth, quickly forming into a dragon-like shape. It raced towards the world-renowned first Hokage, who slapped his hands on the rude, mokutan, wooden wall. A wall of solid wood appeared in front of the man, making a sphere around it wielder. The dragon struck the wall, and even though there was a loud explosion, the wall was undamaged. Tobirama formed a single-hand seal, Suetun, water shock wave. Water formed around the white-haired man, swirling around him protectively like a whirlpool. With a strangled cry, the second released the jutsu upon the two cloud ninja. The cyclone of water rushed towards them. I briefly thought a tsunami was approaching them. Doton, mud wall. The third Hokage's voice rang through the area. A gigantic wall of earth appeared in front of the Raikage, Hokage, and keeping them safe from the powerful jutsu. Despite being safe from the water, the entire roof was now submerged in the water, the barrier keeping it from escaping. Thanks for the save, said to the Hokage, who smiled weakly at the young man. Before anyone could react, long tendrils made of condensed water appeared from behind the Hokage and grabbed hold of him and dragging him underneath. Hiruzen struggled to get out of the second's iron-hard grip, but couldn't. He sensed a shadow on him and his old sensei, and then his sensei was shot away as the Raikage punched him. Raisin grabbed his fellow Kage by the scruff of the neck and swam up to the surface of the water in the matter of seconds. I was currently locked in combat with the first Hokage. Despite having an upper hand with taijutsu and his immense strength, he was still struggling, as even if he managed to get a hit in, a punch that could normally kill a man in one blow only created holes in the Hokage's body, before the Edo Tensei healed him again in the matter of seconds. I kicked the man in the chest, sending him flying through the air. I sensed danger below him and jumped into the air and onto the mud wall as a beam of condensed water hit where he had been before. Another couple shots of the beams raced towards A, who dodged it. It cut cleanly through the hard rock, showing how even one hit would kill a man. I have to admit it, a thought as he dodged another beam. The stories about these guys weren't over-exaggerated. If anything, they didn't manage to say all of it. The three regrouped. Hokage-sama, these guys were your teachers. Do you know any of their weaknesses? A asked Sarutobi. Sarutobi chuckled grimly. I'm afraid my senseis didn't have any weaknesses, none that I saw. How do we end this jutsu? If we end it, then they'll go back to the afterlife? Sarutobi closed his eyes and thought. I'm afraid there may be only one way to get rid of them, and to make sure they can never be summoned again. I was about to ask what that was when they all heard the tile crack underneath them. They glanced down to see cracks forming, and seedlings appearing and growing before their eyes. Mokutan! He exclaimed as he saw for the first time in his life the legendary bloodline of the first Hokage. Mokutan, deep forest emergence, the first Hokage said as he stared at the three, the wood growing bigger and bigger by the second. Then as soon as it had emerged, the wood sprang up and turned into trees the size of buildings. The three scattered as they dodged the deadly jutsu. Raisin noticed a branch coming after him. He activated his lightning amour and smashed it into 1,000 pieces. But it quickly regrowed so fast it did little difference. The third Raikage heard a strangled cry. He noticed through the emerging forest that the Hokage had been caught by a branch and was now completely bound. Before the old man could do anything, he saw a flash of lightning as his son appeared by the Kage. Hang on! I said as he tried to rip the branches off the Kage. Some of them he managed to break easily, but to his surprise some of the branches took a lot more strength needed to break simple branches. No wonder this guy was so feared. I think I can see why he could contain the 9 tails. Sarutobi quickly leapt to his feet as I freed him. We're even now, he told the old man bluntly. Despite the situation they were in, Sarutobi could help but chuckle. Oh, I think we may have to save each other a couple more times for today. I chuckled as well. I won't die that easily, old man. Sarutobi smiled. I may be an old man, but I think I could take a youngster like you. A's eyebrow twitched. Youngster? I'm 20! He cried in indignation. Raisin appeared behind the two and bonked them on the head, making the two fall into the ground. We can bicker later. He barked gruffly. We have a fight to win. Hashirama and Tobirama appeared near Orochimaru, both flanking the man. Orochimaru was smirking so much it would make Sasuke look at the creepy pedophile with a bit of respect, not that he would have. Sarutobi bit his thumb, and did some familiar hand seals, summoning Monkey King Enma. There was a poof of smoke, and suddenly the three became 4. Enma was tall, even taller than A and Raisin, and was about as broad. His Konoha Hyate shone in the light as a soft wind blew through his snow-white fur. Orochimaru, Enma said as he looked down on his summoner's old student, so this day has finally come. As Sarutobi? Sarutobi nodded grimly, that it has, old friend. Enma noticed A and Raisin. So the Raikage and his brat are helping us out. The times are changing, aren't they? I'm not a brat. I roared at the monkey. He looked ready to punch the Monkey King into the next millennium. Enma chuckled. Yep, that's defiantly the Raikage's brat, has the same nasty temper. Enma transform into the adamantine knight? Sarutobi asked his summon. For the first time in this battle, fear flashed through Orochimaru's eyes as he realized what his old sensei was talking about. He quickly turned to the Hokage. Quickly, kill him! Don't let him transform! He cried. The Hokage didn't respond, but they followed the snake Sanin's orders and ran towards the monkey. Like I would go down that easy! Enma shouted as he punched the second through several layers of wood. The first appeared by the monkey, but before he could try to attack the man, Raisin appeared in the blink of an eye and punched the first through the entire field of trees. Enma struck a pose, transform. He disappeared in a cloud of smoke. A black blur shot out of the smoke and into Sarutobi's waiting hands. Sarutobi held the huge pitch-black staff at the ready, a smirk etched on his face. Perhaps I should finally partake in this battle, ne-sensei? Orochimaru asked his sensei with an oily smirk. He smacked his hand against his stomach and he suddenly looked like he was about to hack something up. A python's head appeared out of the man's mouth. The snake opened its mouth in the man's mouth, and a hilt was revealed. The sword continued to get out of the snake until it reached the tip. Orochimaru grabbed the hilt as the snake tongue retreated back into his insides. The sword in question seemed to be plain, but anyone could tell by the glinting steel that it looked almost unnaturally sharp. The hilt was pitch black while the blade was long and thin, and looked like it could cut through steel. I have this, Raisin said as he cracked his knuckles. Hokage Dano, take care of the Hokages. His chakra levels increased as he activated his lightning armor. I'm gonna fry this guy. Raisin suddenly appeared on Orochimaru's right. With a single blow, the snake Sannin was thrown around like a rag doll. Orochimaru cringed slightly as Raisin's foot came crashing down on his chest. For a second nothing happened before Orochimaru chuckled. He slowly got up. He looked at the elderly Kage with a gaze shining with malice. You may be the Raikage, but you're as old as Sensei. Let's see if you still have the power to back up your position. Bring it on, brat. Raisin roared at the man. Orochimaru formed a hand seal. Wind release. Great breakthrough. A huge torrent of wind came from Orochimaru. Raisin shined away in the blink of an eye. The jutsu destroyed a large section of the forest. Raisin appeared in front of Orochimaru. He ducked as a dozen deadly snakes sprang out of the man's mouth. Raisin swung upward and easily sliced through the dozen snakes with his bare arm. Raisin punched the man square in the face. Orochimaru crashed into a tree, forming cracks on the chakra-made bark. Orochimaru chuckled, not bad, but I won't go down so easily. Snakes, even more snakes than before, sprang from Orochimaru's arms. A dozen went directly towards Raisin while others moved to his side to keep him from fleeing. Flee Raisin did not. He merely stood there in annoyance as the snakes struck and immediately turned into ash as his armor electrocuted them. I'm the third Raikage of Kumogakure no Sato. Raisin growled darkly at the man. I won't be killed by some snot-nosed brat who thinks he can challenge me. Orochimaru's legs suddenly disappeared and transformed into a large pure white snake tail. He slithered towards the Kage with surprising speed. But even with Orochimaru's experience and good taijutsu, he realized he was severely outmatched. Orochimaru's hand landed on the hilt of his sword, Kusanagi, and was ready to use it at the ready. Raisin surged forward. Orochimaru flung his hands onto the ground and called out Doton, Earth Flow River. The tile underneath Raisin suddenly turned into mud, making the man sink to his broad shoulders. Orochimaru took this advantage and unsheathed his sword and ran quickly towards the trapped Kage. But as soon as he reached the lightning shadow, Raisin leapt from the mud and grabbed the man by the neck. Lightning style, laser incineration, Raisin said as the lightning covering him covered Orochimaru, who screamed as the lightning started to incinerate him. Raisin tossed the now dead Orochimaru to the side. He started to walk away as Ai and Sarutobi saw the dead Orochimaru. But then Raisin heard something behind him. He turned around just in time to see the supposedly dead Orochimaru open his mouth slightly. There was a squishing noise and two hands appeared in the man's mouth. Raisin's eyes widened as a body slithered out of Orochimaru. The person stood up and they saw with shock a woman whose skin was as pale as Orochimaru's. The woman chuckled. Did you really think you could kill me so easily? She purred. Sarutobi stared at the woman in shock and disbelief, for the woman sounded exactly like Orochimaru. The gears started to turn in the man's head. You actually created it, he whispered. You created an immortality jutsu. Sarutobi looked at the ground ashamed. I failed you as a sensei. Orochimaru chuckled. Kukukuku, don't worry sensei, you won't have to feel that hopeless failure soon, because I'll finally get to kill you. Raisin raced forward once again. His arm clashed against Orochimaru's sword, the sword digging into his protruders sliding. Lightning gathered in the Raikage's palm, forming a deadly point. There was a flash of light, the sound of flesh being cut, and a thud. Orochimaru was in half, Raisin's signature jutsu hell stab fading away as did his lightning armor. Kusanagi cluttered on the tile as it rolled away from Orochimaru, and rolled in the middle between the two. Snakes suddenly sprang from the two halves of Orochimaru. They connected and brought the two pieces back together. Orochimaru smirked as he got back up. His finger twitched slightly as Kusanagi shot through the air and headed towards Raisin's chest. The grass cutter, a sword of immense strength and power, with the ability to cut through metal, hit Raisin's unprotected chest. There was a clink and the sword bounced off. What? Orochimaru couldn't help but gasp. Raisin chuckled as he crossed his arms with a smirk. You seem to have forgotten about my little nickname. I didn't earn the title Perfect Shield by getting cut up, now did I? TCH. Orochimaru scowled as he stood up. If I can't kill you, then I'll just go for my dear sensei. He's the whole reason I'm here. Sarutobi clapped his hands together. It's true I will be dead soon, but not by your hands, he declared, shocking the Sannin. I may have failed you, but with my dying breath I will stop your reign of terror once and for all. I owe it to my village and the countless other victims you have experimented on for your selfish means. And then suddenly everyone felt a freezing chill creep up their spines as something appeared behind Sarutobi. The figure made even Raisin tense up in fear. The power this thing was giving off was unnatural and very powerful. Having fought the Eight Tails single-handedly, this was a huge compliment. The thing looked like some kind of demon from the pits of Tartarus. Beads were wrapped around the left hand, a blade in the mouth. With white hair that looked like the bones on a skeleton, the figure seemed to be stuck within being a solid being in transparency. The thing's right hand stuck itself in the Hokage, who cringed in pain. The hand went through the Hokage's stomach and latched itself onto the first and second's chests. "Forgive me, Hashirama-sensei, Tobirama-sensei," Sarutobi thought as the two Hokage's bodies turned pure white as something took some sort of blue energy from the two. They were curiously shaped like a body, but before they could be inspected further they disappeared. "Fuin!" The third yelled as the Shinigami took their souls. The first and second crumbled to dust, but for a brief second they smiled at their student, as though they knew what was happening and accepted it. A seal formed on the third's chest. Raisin and A immediately recognized it, for that seal was what was on N's navel, a part of the seal that held the Nine Tails at bay. As the first and second's bodies turned to ash, a figure was soon revealed in each pile. The two people were obviously dead, staring at the three with pale, glassy, unseeing eyes. Their Oto Hyatite glimmed in the pale sunlight. One was female, while the other was male. I noticed the surprise and recognition in Sarutobi's eyes. "You know them?" he asked as he looked down at the two dead teenagers. He noticed that they were around N and Yujito's age. They were in the chunin exams. "Your genin, Omoi, fought against the lad while one of my genin, Shikamaru, fought the girl. I think their names were Zaku and Kin," Sarutobi said with a voice heavy in anger. He looked at his student with rage, tears streaming down his eyes. "How dare you use children for your own selfish means?" "Oh please," Orochimaru waved off the two's deaths. They were extendable, cannon fodder. I glared at the man, as did the Kage. "No one is cannon fodder." I declared, "I would never use my people to further my own selfish means." "You're a disgrace, like I care of your opinion, and this coming from a cloud shinobi?" "I'm pretty sure you've gotten your hands dirty," Orochimaru said harshly. Raisin nodded his head. "It's true that my village and people may have caused people pain. I've killed many people and made many enemies. But I did it all for my family and my people. I would gladly die if it meant even a single child lived. I am their leader, their advisor, their protector. I am the Raikage." Sarutobi leapt forward, Enma still in staff form. He and Orochimaru traded numerous attacks. Sarutobi gained the advantage when he whacked Kusanagi out of Orochimaru's hands. "Raisin, hold him down!" Sarutobi yelled over the clashing of weapons. The two did not hesitate and headed into the heated battle. Before Orochimaru knew it, his arms were pinned to his back, Raisin and A holding an arm. Orochimaru struggled to break free but found it useless against such strong men. Sarutobi appeared in front of his old student. "It's over!" Sarutobi barked in the man's pale face. The purple hand appeared again and went into Orochimaru's chest. "This is bad," Orochimaru thought in panic as he felt the hand slowly leaving his body and taking something with him. His eyes had dilated, and he was trembling. Orochimaru struggled to lift his hand up enough to form a seal, hoping to summon Kusanagi, but his fingers were crushed as they squeezed them. "Nice try, but that won't work a second time." The transparent hand pulled out of the Sanin's body with the same blue glowing energy it had taken from the first and second Hokage. It was not the entire thing, more like the edge. "The Reaper Death Seal," Sarutobi began. "For the effectiveness of this jutsu, one's own soul is handed over to the Shinigami, the Grim Reaper. It's a jutsu that costs the user their life, both in this world and the next. For anyone who uses this jutsu or is sealed by this jutsu will spend eternity in the Shinigami's stomach. We shall battle for eternity. It's the jutsu that our hero, the fourth Hokage, used to seal the Kyuubi inside a newborn infant. This is the jutsu that will kill you, Orochimaru. Your soul will be dragged out of you, and you will finally die." "What?" A thought in awe and disbelief. No wonder N's seal is so powerful. The death god's power itself is powering it along with N's chakra and his father's. "Your soul is already halfway out," Sarutobi declared with a grim smile. The Shinigami raised its dagger and sliced the souls. Before eating it, the souls screaming in anguish, before being swallowed by the devilish Grim Reaper. But then Sarutobi started to hack up blood. The soul still in the purplish arm retracted slightly into Orochimaru. Sarutobi smiled bitterly. "But I'm afraid my age is catching up to me. I have no strength left. But even if I can't take your whole soul, I'll take something that is more precious to you. Your jutsu." He turned his attention to the Raikage and A. "I don't suppose you could lend me a little more chakra?" "Just a little. If you give too much you may lose your soul as well." Before the two could reply, a very, very, very familiar voice rang behind them. "Yo, old man, I heard you needed some chakra on the double, to take care of Snake Face who has caused all this trouble. Don't you worry, you big ol' heart of gold. I won't let lose just cause you're old." Everyone turned their heads to see a smirking killer be walking up to them. Despite a couple scratches on him and his clothing, he seemed fine. What really got their attention was how the hell he got into the area. I yelled shocked, how the hell did you get in here? This whole place is surrounded by a S-rank barrier. Not even those ANBU, he gestured his hands to the shocked ANBU standing outside the barrier, could get in. B pointed at something. They all saw with surprise that there was a hole in the floor. They could see the inside of the building from the viewpoint. You guys realize that this is a roof? It wasn't that hard seeing as I'm living proof. It doesn't matter if there is a barrier on the top and sides. All I had to do was go inside. I looked at Orochimaru. You used an S-rank barrier to keep in Kage-level shinobi for a death match, and you forgot to create a barrier on the bottom of the area of said death match. If Orochimaru had control of his hands, he would have either smacked or strangled himself. I knew I had forgotten something. He did some sort of weird dance as he pointed at Orochimaru. Yo, you fool and tool. You messed up big, and now that everyone knows it's not cool. God damn it, B, why didn't you come back us up? I demanded to his younger brother, who was still doing that stupid dance he and N liked to do. I was busy taking care of the sound and sand. I couldn't really tend to this matter at hand. I had to watch out for my students and daimyo, but man, can my students fight, yo. B said with his normal carefree smile. Sarutobi smiled even though the Grim Reaper had his hand stuck inside him holding on to the remainder of his soul. B jumped towards the four and placed a hand on his back. His hand glowed bright blue as he channeled enough chakra into the elderly Kage. He made sure not to give too much, or he may have found himself in the death god's belly. Orochimaru yelled in pain as his hands stopped trembling and they turned a nasty gray, as though they had turned to stone. You can't use your hands or arms, you can never form another hand seal again, never cast a jutsu again. You may live another day, my foolish old student, but your dream has died. Sarutobi said as he fell to the ground. Raisin and A let go of him, seeing there was no danger, and ran towards the downed Kage. Orochimaru fled with his 4 followers, Anbu chasing after them, not that they would catch the elusive snake Sannin. Sarutobi chuckled, so this is how it ends, dying for my village despite my old age. This is the way I would have wanted it to go. He looked at the dark-skinned men in front of him. I want to thank you, not only as Hokage but also a stubborn old man. I doubt my village could have survived without your help, thank you. You take care of yourselves. Our world is a world of hatred and anger. It is not hard to lose someone important and to become part of the cycle. Also tell N that I have faith that he will become one of the strongest shinobi this world has ever seen. Maybe Jiraiya is right. Maybe he is the chosen one. The chosen one? A asked Jiraiya. I don't have much time left. Please protect N. He is my successor's heir. I never had the chance to protect him as a child. But it warms this old heart to see you have protected him even better than I ever could. The man's voice grew weaker. Well, it seems I'll get to see Minato again. He'll be happy to know about his son. He'll be proud. Sarutobi gave one last gentle smile as his eyes closed. He looked peaceful, as though he was sleeping. The 3 Kumogakure ninjas sensed some people behind them. They saw it was Jiraiya, whose eyes were shining brightly as he saw the still form of his sensei. Tears trailed down the red marks on his cheeks. Sensei, with N and Yujito. I'm free! I'm free! Shikaku cackled as he jumped into the air in giddiness. Shikaku noticed the gigantic toad and the 2 Jinchuuriki on his back. He pointed a clawed hand at them. Right away. The guy I want to kill, you. He cackled. And would you look at this, Kyuubi and Nibi? Ah, oh, I am going to enjoy eating your containers. You're stuck in those puny humans while I'm fully formed. Who's the tough guy now? Ah, Kyuubi, your brother is a dick, and said to his tenant. Kyuubi sighed. Many of us agree with you. Be careful, Kit. I'm going to jump. Get ready, Gamabunta said to the 2. Shikaku's belly grew bigger. Futon, air bullets. He slapped his belly and an air bullet the size of a building sped towards the huge toad, who jumped into the air in the nick of time. Gamabunta formed a hand seal. Sueton, water bullets. He spat out a water that was equally the size of the air bullet. Shikaku shot out another air bullet. It hit the water bullet, and the 2 destructive jutsu were cancelled out as the other jutsu destroyed the other. While the forest below them was suddenly covered in water as though a hurricane had happened, Shikaku saw Gamabunta was still in the air. Futon, air bullets. Shikaku set off at least 4 bullets at the red toad, who quickly spat out several water bullets in retaliation. The forest floor was drenched from the 2 jutsu. Yujito-chan, any idea on how to get the gender-confused Ju to get lost? And asked his best friend. He showed up when Gaara fell asleep. I think we have to wake him up. He just needs a good oil punch in the face. And smirked. Punching people in the face? That's my specialty. He jumped down on Gamabunta's nose and looked at the gigantic toad in the eye. Boss Toad. You got to get me and Yujito near Gaara. We gotta wake him up. It's either that or be swallowed. And said in his usual rhymes, got it. Gamabunta quickly jumped towards Shikaku. Their heads clashed and Yujito and N leapt off the chief toad's head, and was ahead and with a cocked back hand punched Gaara in the face, instantly waking him up and flying off Shikaku's head. Yujito jumped off the head and formed several hand seals, Nibi's chakra pouring through her katan, flaming tornado. A huge wave of fire came out and swirled around viciously as it struck Shikaku. For a couple of brief seconds there was a scream before Shikaku's conscious returned to Gaara. The fire cleared to see what used to be the sand dune now completely made of glass. The glass shattered into a million pieces, and picked up Gaara as he fell, and the three left the area. Gaara fell to the ground floor, completely exhausted. He lifted his head weakly as En and Yujito walked forward. Both were tired but not as exhausted as Gaara. Fear shined in Gaara's teal eyes. He scrambled backwards weakly. Stay away from me. When he saw the two ignore him and continue walking towards him, he tried to escape, but he had no energy left. I won't die. I won't lose my existence. Gaara cried. Gaara, you asked us before why we were fought together, why we cared for each other. You told us that the only way to be strong was to hate everything around you besides you, Yujito said as she gestured to her and En, but we've beaten you. How can you be stronger than us? Gaara didn't say anything, and spoke next. Gaara, we're like you, we're Jinchuuriki. That creates a bond that nothing can break. We're family, brothers and sisters, friends. Gaara's eyes widened. I know that you've been through pain, more pain than me and Yujito-chan, but like we told you a month ago, we want to help you. En's eyes were shining, his shades having broken off during the battle, but he wasn't crying. I'm sorry you had to have been alone for all those years. I wish you could have been born in Kumo. Sure, the villagers hate us, but we have family and friends who love and support us. And one day we'll show the villagers that we are just containers, not the bju inside us. Despite our life being easier, we have still felt that pain. My dad couldn't stop the name-calling and the whispers. Despite us trying to ignore it, we still heard them. We saw the hatred and fear in their eyes. Eyes that wished we were gone and never coming back. But we didn't let them get to us. All three of us swore that we would tame our beasts and protect our village. No one would see us as monsters, but protectors. And said with a voice filled with passion, Gaara listening to every word. If we didn't have important in our lives, people who loved and cared about us, people who we would die for, we wouldn't be as strong as we were now. We may have been like you, we may have hated and cursed them, Yujito spoke softly. Gaara was having flashbacks of his life, his childhood, the pain, Yashimaru talking about love and how it could cure his hurting heart, Yashimaru trying to kill him becoming the monster everyone thought him as. Is this why they are so strong, Yashimaru? Gaara thought weakly as he thought of his dead uncle. Kankuro and Temari appeared by their fallen brother. Both looked ready to fight En and Yujito. They were fearful of the two. Who wouldn't after they had seen them battle the one-tailed Shikaku and still looked ready to dish out more pain? Temari. Kankuro, let's go. Gaara said weakly. But Gaara. Kankuro stopped and decided to listen to his brother. He picked the redhead up. This has to be the first time I've touched him without his sand trying to kill me, he thought. Gaara gave one last look at the two before he disappeared with his siblings. The clearing was quiet. You think we got to him? Yujito asked her friend. And nodded. Yeah, I think we did. He broke out into a broad smile and gave his fellow blonde a huge bear huge, crushing the poor girl. We fought the Achibi. We're so awesome. Yujito smiled as she hugged the broad boy back. That we did. Look out, Turtle Island, here we come. And dropped her back to the ground. Guess we should go check on Pinky and that Sai guy. Yujito nodded her head in agreement, and the two shoes shined away. They appeared on a tree branch to find a still exhausted Sai, and the hand made of sand slowly crumbling away. It finally fell apart, and the unconscious Sakura fell to her death. And sighed, now I have to save the fangirl. He jumped down after her, and in a second appeared cradling the pink-haired girl. Sakura's eyes fluttered open, the colors around her mixing up her vision. She managed to see spiky hair and immediately jumped to a conclusion. Oh, Sasuke-kun, she swooned, you saved me. You really do love me. She leaned her head upwards, lips puckered. Yujito saw red as she saw the fangirl almost touching En's lips, and was too surprised to do anything. She did what any best friend would do in that situation. She punched the pink-haired girl in the face, hard. OWWW. Sakura screamed, her vision cleared, and she saw with surprise and confusion a blushing En and an angry Yujito. She pointed at the male. How dare you try to take advantage of me? She screeched at the blonde. What? And asked, You were the one who tried to kiss me. I wonder what your precious Sasuke-kun will do when you tried to kiss the guy who kicked his ass. Shut up! She screeched in anger and alarm. Sasuke-kun is 1,000 times better than you, and it was you who instigated the whole thing. I know I'm pretty and amazing, but my true love is Sasuke-kun. And he won't believe you over me. Yes, sure he is, and said sarcastically. I'm sure he even listens to you. Dickless is right, Sai added, and I don't think you are soulmates, seeing as he has shown a large amount of annoyance whenever you are within 100-meter distance of him. Shut up, Sai. Sakura would have tried to hit the boy, except she was tired and was being held by En. Hey, where did that monster go? She asked before she gasped as En's grip tightened around her, strangling the girl. Do not, and I repeat, do not call Gaara a monster in front of me. En snarled while Yujito held up her hand and her fingernails turned into razor-sharp claws. Sakura gulped as she got the memo. Especially since we were the ones who took him down. Gaara defeated and knocked you unconscious in what, like one hit? Yujito said. We should head back. I don't hear any more fighting. Yujito turned to Sai. Do you need any help? Sai smiled fakely at the girl. No, I'm fine. The collection of genin headed back towards the village. What they found was not good. Bodies were scattered around the streets and buildings. Fire was everywhere, and buildings had been smashed by jutsu. So this is what war is like, and thought grimly as they stared at the scene, and perked his head up when he felt B's chakra flare up. Come on, he said worriedly, wondering if his brother was in trouble. He quickly headed towards the arena, Yujito hot on his heels. They arrived in the arena just as the enemy fled, and immediately noticed his brothers and father, and immediately dropped Sakura on the ground and raced towards his family, Yujito following him. I still can't believe the ANBU never thought of getting in using the roof, Raisin was saying in disbelief to his eldest sons when all of a sudden something crashed into him. Course, being the complete badass he didn't move or stumble. You guys are okay, En mumbled into his father's chest, hugging him tightly, tears of relief and joy streaming down in his face. Yujito crashed into A and gave him a tight hug, which he heartily returned. B looked at the scene. Hey, what about me? Kirabi? Or as people call me, the mighty killer B. He said, using a dance to help his rhymes. A and Yujito looked at one another. In perfect synchronization they both yelled, Shut up, B, and punched the teenager in the face, making him crash into a wall. Geez, tough crowd, why is it that everyone who hates my rhyme is from the cloud? B mumbled to himself as he fell out of the hole. Raisin smiled at his youngest child. He hugged him back tightly. I think I had to worry more about you. Did you really think that bastard could defeat me in A? And sniffled. Something completely out of his character, but if he had spent a good hour knowing that your eldest brother and father were in a death match while B was fighting in the invasion, he had reason to worry. Still, you never know. Raisin chuckled. Sorry, kiddo, but you're stuck with me for a little longer, and grinned, before noticing something behind his father's shoulder. His eyes widened when he saw Pervy Sage holding the Hokage, who he realized was shocked that he was dead. The arena went silent, the Konoha ninja staring at their beloved dead leader in disbelief. The village was in mourning. Their Hokage had died with a smile on his face as he protected them with his dying breath. The funerals for all the deaths took place a couple days later. Raisin had decided for them to attend. No one argued, seeing as they had helped lead during the invasion, and was waiting in the kitchen of their temporary home. He was wearing a black muscle shirt and black ANBU style pants. He had foregone his shades so that one could see his bright blue eyes. His headband was placed on his forehead like usual. The door opened to reveal Yujito in a black dress. Everyone else is outside. Let's go. And nodded his head and they both got up. Samui and Karui were wearing the same dress as Yujito while the men were wearing the same thing as En. Let's go. The funeral was long, as every person who had lost their life was told and identified. The Hokage's casket was in the front, a picture of the old man stationed behind it, and heard sniffling and saw that Konohamaru was trying to not burst into tears as he stood at his Gigi's funeral. He placed his hand on the kid's head and shook it. Konohamaru looked at the sad En before bursting into tears and hugging his boss, as he liked to call En, and felt something hit his spiky hair. Glancing up, he saw the sky had turned dark. Rain soon came roaring down, as though the sky was mourning the deaths. Is this what war does? En wondered, does it just take those precious to us away, make us bitter and sad? He glanced down at the sobbing Konohamaru. I don't like it. What good was accomplished? Nothing. All it does is spread pain and hate. He looked at Jiraiya, who was staring at his sensei's casket with a blank and emotionless face. Pervy Sage is right, it is a cycle. A cycle of hate and pain. The rain continued to pour down on the assembled mourners. At the memorial stone, Kakashi was staring at the stone with a blank face, not caring about the freezing rain. Kakashi felt the guilt tearing inside him. Why was it that everyone dear and close to him died? No matter how hard he tried, no matter how much stronger he got, his loved ones and friends always died while he could do nothing to save them. Sensei, Obito, Rin, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, I failed the leaf. I couldn't protect Lord Sarutobi. I'm still just as much a failure as I was back then on that day. And watched as everyone placed white roses on the casket. He had a flashback when he had placed the flowers on his parents' grave marker. A cycle. It has always been a cycle. Chapter 22, The Search. Konoha Council Chamber. The assorted members of the council of the village hidden in the leaves were seated in their chairs, from prominent clan heads to wealthy civilians who had never wielded a blade before. They were gathered around a large round table. Koharu and Hamura, Sarutobi's former teammates, were seated on either side of an empty chair, where the Hokage would have been seated. But with the seat empty, this was the whole reason that everyone had gathered. The fire daimyo was seated on a raised platform, so he looked down on his subordinates. But that was the only thing about the man that looked threatening. If anything, the old man had a sort of dopey look. That, and he was always using his small fan to fan himself, would have made anyone who wasn't familiar with Kage and daimyos would have thought he wasn't that important, even though he was. I guess we should get started, Hamura said gruffly, whilst beside him Koharu nodded her head. The few people who had been talking to their friends quieted as the meeting started. Jiraiya was leaning against a wall, looking utterly bored. He would much rather be out and about, maybe showing a couple new jutsu to add into his arsenal, or doing some training himself. He did not want to be stuck in a small room with a bunch of sniveling civilians who would do anything for a little extra gold. It's time to choose the fifth Hokage. With Sarutobi dead, Hamura started as his features saddened slightly of his deceased teammate. We must choose our next leader. We have to set an example to the other nations that even with the third dead we are still as strong. I agree. The civilian known as Mabuki Haruno spoke in a shrill tone. What we need to do is drive out those awful Kumogakure ninja from our village. Jiraiya glared at the woman, making her shudder. They helped us during our time of need and now you want to kick them out? He shook his head. Foolish. We owe them whether we like it or not. I received a message from the Sand Village. The fire daimyo, as he fanned himself. It appears that their Kazekage had been dead for quite a while. Orochimaru had been behind the whole thing. It seems they were tricked. I say that we form another alliance with them. Daimyo-sama, while I do not question your word, but is it really a great idea to ally ourselves with them? Saminazuka said. Orochimaru may have been behind the whole thing, but they still followed his orders. They thought they were taking orders from their Kage. Would you have disobeyed yours? No, because shinobi listen and follow their Kage without question, Shibi Abirame stated. TCH still. Tsum huffed out as she leaned back in her chair. Shikaku was leaning into his arms that were on the table. How about we just choose the Hokage now? I want to go to the bar with my friends and get drunk, and then go home to take a nap. I agree with Shikaku, Choza Akimichi said as he chuckled warmly at his friend, who had returned to his nap. Jiraiya of the Sannin, the daimyo, looked at the world-renowned super pervert with a calculating eye before he smiled. I think you will be the best candidate for the position of Hokage. The sound of a fist hitting the table turned everyone's attention to the man who had hit the table. Jiraiya frowned. Danzo. I do not think Jiraiya is capable of being our Kage. Despite being one of the Sannin, it was one of the Sannin who killed Sarutobi and greatly weakened our nation as a whole, making nations more able to attack us to gain a spot as one of the 5 nations. Not to mention that his attitude isn't Hokage worthy. He'd just disgrace our nation and our past Hokage. Danzo stated as he looked at Jiraiya with his one eye. And what makes you think you're worthy of being Hokage, Danzo? And Noichi Yamanaka asked the apparent cripple. You are as old as Sarutobi was, while Jiraiya is in his prime, and with his reputation we can ward off any wannabe invaders. Oh please, you are a traitor, Danzo said to the Sannin. Ignoring the gasps and roars of outrage, Jiraiya said nothing but looked at the man in contempt. He was the exact opposite of his sensei. And what evidence do you have to prove this, Danzo? The daimyo asked in interest. I have all the proof I need. You could easily find it in the village, your apprentice Jiraiya. Everyone looked at the Sannin in surprise. When did you get another apprentice, Jiraiya? Choza asked. I was unaware of this. Who is the lad? The civilians were already planning on trying to gain the favor of this new person, the apprentice of the Toad Sage, who would take over for Jiraiya when the time was right, was easily someone they wanted under their thumb. The Kumo brat, Yatsuki-en, Danzo said curtly, distaste evident on his features, making everyone look at the man in shock and confusion. Do you have any proof that he is under Jiraiya's tutelage? Shibi asked the man, his tone curious. The boy summoned Gamabunta, the chief toad, against the Ichibi. And they apparently seemed to be on good terms, seeing as the toad helped the brat to fight Shikaku. Danzo said. A genin who was present, Sai, saw everything. He also heard an even more interesting piece of information. Jiraiya's expression darkened, something everyone took note of. The Ichibi Jinchuuriki fought against Niyujito and Yatsuki-en, and he called them something very interesting. He questioned why they, his fellow Jinchuuriki, were not submerged in hatred and anger. The shinobi's eyes widened when they heard that. Are you sure? Inoichi asked in alarm. Please, Danzo scoffed. I am always sure, especially with something like this. The civilians, however, were confused. A Jinchuuriki? What the hell is a Jinchuuriki? Surely it isn't something that important. A wealthy and chubby civilian tried to laugh, but he stopped seeing the serious looks on the shinobi's faces. A Jinchuuriki is a sacrifice. They are the power of human sacrifice. Only 9 exist in this world of war and hate, each wielding the power to destroy nations and armies. The 9 Ju, from the Ichibi, the weakest, to the Kyuubi, the strongest, they are sealed within a child, and are trained to become weapons. They are the perfect weapon, Danzo said. We already know that Kumogakure has 2 Ju, the Nibi and Hachibi, but I have received word from my spies that the Hachibi Jinchuuriki is Kurabi, the second son of the Raikage, the Ichibi brat called En and Yujito Jinchuuriki, both of them. So what you're saying? A civilian trailed off as he gasped in realization and horror. They have gained another Jinchuuriki and Ju, one that seems to be sealed inside En or Yujito, 1. Koharu said gravely, no nation has ever gained more than 2 Jinchuuriki. For the Cloud to have not 1, not 2, but 3, she trailed off. They are a serious threat to us. But what Ju have they gained? Haruno asked, more like screeched. I only have 2 Ju that would make sense, then Ananbai. The 7 Tails is not held by any great nation but is with Takigakure. Kumo could easily have kidnapped the previous Jinchuuriki or blackmailed them. The other one is the most unknown. The Kyuubi, the 9-tailed fox. And if they have that Ju, well, we've already seen what it can do, Danzo said as people gasped as they all remembered the pure malice and destruction that had come from the beast. They knew that one day the Kyuubi would return as no one had been used for the sealing, but to have already come back? Both are high-tailed beasts, even though Nibi is the second weakest. The Hachibi with either the 7 or 9 tails, Kumogakure could easily rise above us. They could win any war against us. We have no Jinchuuriki whilst they have 3, and you're training none of them. Danzo accused Jiraiya. Who I train is none of your business, Danzo, Jiraiya said icily. I am a Sannin and I was given permission by Sensei to go on leave. I could have trained the Skikage if I had wanted to. En is not a threat to us, and neither is Kumogakure. In case you forgot, they helped us out during the invasion. They could have easily left us to burn, and no one would blame them. I have a suggestion on who should be the next Hokage. He turned towards the daimyo. I have a large spy network that I must control. If I became Hokage, I would not be able to do it. Why not my teammate Tsunade? She is the daughter of the first Hokage and the great-grand-niece of the second Hokage, not to mention a Sannin. The daimyo pondered on that before he smiled. She's perfect. I now announce that Senju Tsunade as the 5th Hokage. The council left, still grumbling. Only a few shinobi seemed to be on Jiraiya's side. He did have permission to have a student, even if that student was a shinobi of a different nation. Jiraiya, Danzo said as they were left alone, each glaring at each other. Interesting lad, isn't he? Almost 13, and he seems to look like a chibi form of your old student. Doesn't he? Jiraiya didn't say anything. He vanished in a shushin, leaving Danzo alone in the abandoned council room. Danzo looked at the Hokage's seat with an envious look. One day I will become Hokage, Jiraiya. You won't stop me. And the boy is a threat to Konoha, to me. I have to get rid of him. But how? On the outskirts of the Land of Fire, mist hung in the air, making it near impossible to see anything 5 meters in front of them. All was silent as the lone Konoha guard stood at the entrance to his country, and then he heard something. A soft tinkling. He strained his ears to make sure he wasn't imagining it. He heard it again, this time closer. The sound reminded the man of bells. It kept tinkling and tinkling until he knew that the source was coming his way, and then like ghosts they appeared. 2 figures walking towards him. They were wearing the same thing, black cloaks and large hats that hide their appearance. Small bells were on the hats, indicating that was the source of the sound, but their clothing was the only thing the 2 companions had in common. One was a giant of a man, easily over 6 feet tall, and was just as muscular as he was tall. The guard noticed that he was pale, so much that he almost appeared blue, but the guard just assumed that it was a trick in the light. The other noticeable thing about him was the thing on his back. It looked like a sword, with the hilt by the man's head, but it seemed to be wrapped in bandages, plus the thing was too big to be a sword, or a normal one at least. The other companion was shorter. He may have been a child, but with his features hidden it was hard to tell. Unlike his massive partner, he was much thinner looking. The bottom of his mouth was covered in bandages. His cloak had a high collar. The two walked through the gate, the guard staring at them in shock. Hey! He called out weakly. The two looked at him. He saw a devilish grin on the tall one, while the smaller one looked at him with inverted light pink eyes. Before the guard could say anything else, there was a deep snarl. The man screamed in fear and pain as monstrous-looking wolves attacked him. The two companions having already walked away as the summons devoured the guard. There was a small spot of light through the mist. The red clouds clashing against the midnight black cloak seemed to shine before the two disappeared into the mist, the soft tinkling of bells fading. Back in the Leaf Village, Konohamaru Sarutobi was hiding behind a training post as he watched N training by himself. He gasped in awe as he saw N punch a large boulder that immediately shattered. He yelped as he ducked behind the post as Kunai hit where his head had been a couple seconds ago. "What are you doing, little man? I didn't know I had a crazy stalker for a fan." Konohamaru looked up to see N looking at him from atop the post, and jumped off the post and stood by the Konoha Academy student. "What's on your mind? And don't give me any crap that you're fine." "I'm weak," Konohamaru muttered while N looked at him in surprise. He squatted down so he was looking at the boy in the eye. "What makes you think that? During the invasion, I did nothing. I ran and hid with everyone else. Maybe if I had helped I would have made a difference. Maybe I could have saved Gigi." Konohamaru started to sniffle. "Kono, don't blame yourself. You are just an academy student. You would have died if you had tried to fight a jonin," and said softly. "You're only 3 years older than me. Yet you fought that scary sand monster and beat it. Not to mention all those invaders." "I did nothing," and gave the boy a one-armed hug. "Hey Kono, wanna learn a really awesome jutsu?" he asked to hopefully distract the boy and to make him feel better. Konohamaru perked his head up at the word awesome jutsu. He immediately started to bounce around as though he had drunk an entire gallon of caffeine. "Whoa, really?" he shouted as he continued to jump around the amused N. "Am I going to learn a jutsu that can destroy a whole building? Or maybe to summon a tsunami? Or oh, what about that cool lightning thingy you use?" And looked at him in confusion. "Lightning thingy?" he questioned towards the happy boy. "You know," he pointed at N, "that really cool thing where lightning is around you. That's so cool. Especially since your lightning is red instead of the normal color. Do you think I could get red lightning as well?" "That lightning thingy is the right no Yoroi, one of the most strongest jutsu around. It could compete with your 4th Hokage. Big Brother was the only one who survived against the Flash. It's an S-rank, nearly SS rank jutsu. It's not called the lightning thingy," and said with a small huff before smiling at the boy. "And I'm afraid you can't do that yet. I don't even know if your element is lightning," and looked at the boy with a grin. "I'll show you one of my favorite jutsu." He formed a single hand seal, Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 ends appeared, each smirking at one another. Konohamaru was looking at N with stars in his eyes. "Whoa." He clenched his hand. "Yosh. I'm going to learn that jutsu and kick your ass." And chuckled, though then again that is an A-rank jutsu that only jonin can do. But then again, hey, why not? "But just try and make one clone. I'd rather not have you die on me." Konohamaru nodded. He formed a hand seal and shouted Shadow Clone Jutsu. A poof of smoke appeared by him to reveal a pale Konohamaru who looked like he had the plague. The clone wobbled slightly before poofing away. Konohamaru tried again and again, but it failed every time. Konohamaru was frowning as he continued to try it. "I won't disappoint, boss. I'm going to beat him." This continued on for at least an hour. By then Konohamaru was on the ground panting. "N." The two turned their heads to see Karui running up to them. "There you are, the perv wants to talk to you. Something about training," Karui said, though anyone could tell that she was annoyed by Jiraiya and his antics, and nodded before looking at Konohamaru. "Sorry kid, looks like I got to go, see ya later yo." He shoo-shined away with Karui leaving the boy alone in the middle of the training field. "Kyuso," Konohamaru mumbled, before he looked back up, eyes shining with determination. "I won't lose to the boss. I'll create a jutsu so powerful it'll kick his butt easily." His stomach gurgled. "But after I get a snack." The boy ran off towards a shop to get some food. Later during the day, a refreshed Konohamaru was munching on some dango. He was frowning as he tried to think of any way possible to defeat N. Sadly, he could think of none. He sighed before he glanced to his right and stopped. There in front of him was the women's bathhouses. He snickered as he started to blush, his inner pervert, or inner Jiraiya, coming out of him. He quickly climbed up one of the tallest trees that was near the gate, and got onto the end of a long branch before looking down. He immediately started to giggle as he saw the woman bathing. He then noticed a certain girl that stood out from the others. He couldn't really see anything due to her being in the water, but for some reason she looked awfully familiar. She had light blonde hair that was in a ponytail, a heart-shaped face, and even though her eyes were closed, Konohamaru bet she had blue eyes. All in all, she was very beautiful. The gears started to turn in Konohamaru's head. He grinned and looked at Jiraiya in surprise. "Eh, what do you mean I'm going with you on a trip?" He whined. "I wanna go home. Konoha is nice and all, but I miss the cloud. We've been here for over a month." Jiraiya sighed. "Look, Brad, I know you want to go home, but think of this as a training trip. I'll teach you an awesome jutsu you can't learn anywhere else. Plus you get to meet my teammate. Not the creepy one, but the hot one." "I think you're the creepy one," Karui snapped at the white-haired man from across the room. She, Omoy, and Samui were huddled in a circle talking about something, but they could hear the conversation going on. Raisin was talking to B.A. and Darui, while Yujito had gone to the baths. Jiraiya looked at the redhead with a hurt look. "How am I creepy?" he asked the girl. "I'll have you know I am regarded as a hero in many nations, the defeaters of any evildoers, the gallant Jiraiya," he said as he finished with a ridiculous pose. Karui pointed at the man. "See, he's creepy." Jiraiya deflated at her words. "Tch, cheeky brat. Why doesn't anyone respect their elders?" he complained as he plopped back into his chair. "Because none of us respect you?" Karui put in with a smirk that was shared by all the present genin, and included, making the man fall to the ground in defeat. "Boss." Everyone heard Konohamaru's voice outside the house. And perked his head up as he walked towards the window to see a panting but triumphant Konohamaru. The boy pointed a finger at the teenager. "I'm challenging you. I've created a jutsu that will defeat you in one blow," he announced with a proud smirk on his face while Ann looked at him bemused. "Oh, is that so?" he asked. "Sorry if I'm a little curious on this so awesome jutsu. Shouldn't you be aiming a little low? Come out here so I can beat you," the boy yelled to En, who appeared in front of him via Shusin. Jiraiya was leaning against the wall of the building since he wanted to see this, and smiled as he got into a taijutsu stance. "Alright, little man, let's see what you got," though I doubt it'd hit the spot, and said with his usual rhymes. Konohamaru smirked and formed the ram hand seal, and thought that he was using the shadow clones. Instead, Konohamaru disappeared in a cloud of smoke, meaning he had used a henge. En's eyes widened under his shades as he saw the interesting henge. Konohamaru had transformed into Yujito, or rather a very naked Yujito. Smoke was covering her private parts, but only by a little. But other than that, En got a full view. What also added on to it was that Yujito had small kitty ears. "How's this for a jutsu, and Kuin?" Konohamaru said in Yugdio's voice, which ended with a purr, and was blasted into a tree from the nosebleed he got, his jaw slack as he gazed into space with a goofy look in his eyes. Jiraiya was the same, and tried to form coherent thoughts but found himself unable to. He was twitching slightly, the goofy grin still on his face. Konohamaru, or rather Yujito, smirked as he saw the defeated En. He suddenly felt a chill creep up his spine as he heard growling behind him along with Kage level Ki. He slowly turned around and nearly pissed himself when he saw a very, very, very angry Yujito glaring at him. "You," she growled as he noticed with a start, her eyes flashing amber before going back to a fiery blue. He backpedaled and hinged back to himself as she ran towards him. "How dare you peek on me, you little pervert!" Konohamaru's girly screams were heard all over the village, and even outside of it, making the animals flee. When Konohamaru was just a single giant bruise passed out on the ground, Yujito stalked towards En, who immediately noticed her angry posture, and the goofy grin was replaced with trembling lips that were quivering in fear. "You!" Yujito appeared on top of him, her hands on En's neck as she strangled him. "How dare you watch that, pervert!" En's girly screams were even louder than Konohamaru's. Yujito soon stopped punching the poor boy when she realized he had been knocked out quite a long time ago. She snorted slightly as she got up. She then noticed with a twitching eye that Jiraiya was getting out of the hole he had made when he had blasted into the wall. He gulped when he saw her glare, held up his hands in surrender. "I'm out," he announced, and disappeared in a cloud of smoke, safe in the home of the toads where she couldn't get him. In the land of lightning, two men were walking side by side as they slowly walked closer and closer to the location of the not-so-hidden location of the village hidden in the clouds. Their black robes fluttered in the breeze, the red clouds standing out. The two companions were wearing the same straw hats as the other group in the land of fire. One of them was very tall and lanky. His skin was tan enough to pass for anyone who lived in the mountains. His unnatural green eyes glinted from underneath the shadow his hat was providing. The other man was tall as well. His robe was parted slightly so that you could see his bare chest. A pendant hung on his neck. A strange symbol was on it. It appeared to be an upside-down triangle. A large, nasty-looking red and black scythe glittered eerily on the man's back. Unlike the other group across the world, they were speaking, or more like one was screaming while the other talked in annoyance. "You're so annoying, Kakuzu," the man with the scythe complained to the tall man, whose eyes flashed with annoyance at his partner. "Haiden, be quiet, we are in enemy territory, and you'll scare off any good bounties," Kakuzu spoke, his voice grave and grim. Haiden snorted, not caring at all in the least. "Is that all you care about? Money, you'll go to hell for that. I however will be saved by Jashin-sama." He spoke with passion in his voice for his god. "I am his follower, and I don't believe in leaving anyone alive, like you do to get a bigger bounty. We should just kill them and anyone within a 2-mile distance. Even hell runs on money. I think I'll be fine." "And then we wouldn't have enough money to fund our organization," Kakuzu grumbled. "Money is everything in this world. If you don't have it, you'll be nothing. If you have it, then you're fine. As long as you can hold on to it, and not get killed by anyone wanting it." Haiden pointed his finger at Kakuzu. "Shut up, you heathen. I should deliver your unjustly sold to Jashin-sama. He must be furious with me for joining a group where we having to get our targets alive." He said the last word as though it was some foreign language. "Shut up, I don't have time for you to ramble on about your god," Kakuzu spoke back. There was a flash of red and black and Kakuzu held back Haiden's deadly scythe with one hand. "Don't try my patience, or I'll kill you." He let go of the scythe and headed back on the path. Haiden looked disappointed. "What, that's it? That wasn't even a good fucking fight." When his partner didn't respond, he chid before following after his comrade. "As long as we get to kill some of those Kumo ninja, I'll be fine." Haiden rubbed his hands together in happiness. "More souls to give to Lord Jashin. We aren't going to fight the entire village. With the Raikage gone, we can figure out the village's strengths and weaknesses. It'll make it easier to capture those Jinchuuriki, or for us the Nibi Jinchuuriki," Kakuzu warned his fellow criminal. "Fuck that. I'm going for a fight. I am going to send some unworthy souls to the greatness of Lord Jashin. They should be happy that their worthless shitty souls are being used for such an honor." "Shut up, Haiden." "Fuck you, Kakuzu." The two members continued to bicker on their way towards Kumogakure. With so many prominent shinobi gone, this was the perfect time to strike. They couldn't take any Jinchuuriki yet, but that didn't mean they couldn't scout a little. One day the hunt would begin, but until then each side would have to wait and see who makes the first move.